Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode of The Testing Room, where three of the gaming industry's best video game consultants who have never actually consulted on a game bring you new topics each and every week. And this week is week number 2 of the Pathless, right? We continue on the Pathless. As always, I'm Alex, a.k.a. The Godfather.
I'm Christian, a.k.a. Soto45.
I am Preston, a.k.a. Funkadelic Jedi.
Yeah, what's up, boys?
Nah, tired boy.
Yeah.
Long day.
Tired boy.
Yeah.
You stay up late or just work tired?
Stayed up late and worked tired.
What were you doing up late?
Playing a game. Good game.
Yeah? Good game? Good game?
Yeah.
What game? Final Fantasy 14?
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate because that's the only good game. No.
Yeah. That's
Apparently you guys can send me
only good
something.
game I know of.
There's like a whole get them back plan or whatever through Steam, so if you guys look at that, you can send me an email and I'll come back for like a month.
Yeah,
No,
I did.
yeah, but
send
you only get the
No,
mount
I tried. I tried to send you something, but because
only
you're
get the-
still on our old data center, I couldn't get it to you.
Oh.
Yeah, and you have to subscribe for like 3 months or something for us to get either of us to get a mount, which is
Yeah,
all that
and
really
it's
matters.
so cool.
It is really cool. Yeah, so anyway, before we dive into our weeks, Preston, what we got over in the corner?
Yeah, we did get a comment on the YouTubes. Mr. Travis, TMC Comas, T. McComas. I just figured that one out. Good job, Preston.
TMC Comas.
TMC. I was thinking DMC, so I saw TMC. And I'm like, that's not how you do his last name. And I'm like, okay. He's got a Mick in there. Gave us a comment for the comment corner. Question for the prestigious. Thank you. Preston's comment corner. With the conversation of the game of the year quickly approaching, it made me ponder a question for you boys. Do you think video game remakes should be considered for game of the year contenders? If so, what are the requirements it should have to be considered? I only think of this because there are so many spots, and for a let me take that back. I only think of this because there are only so many spots, and for a great game to miss out. Because of a remake seems like a great topic of conversation. Don't get me wrong, I love RE4. It's probably one of my favorite survival horror games, but the remake is a straight copy and paste without tank controls. I know
that's
Christian
just not true.
will probably murder me for even mentioning this, but I just wanted to ask and see what your thoughts were. Thank you, Travis. I'm sorry to butcher that. But
So I'm not.
I think it's a
you.
valid. I think it's a valid question, regardless of how
it comes up a lot. Yeah.
how close RE4 is, because I'll simplify it down. If it's a remake, and we're not saying reboot, maybe this will come into the answer, but if it's a remake, should it take a spot of another potentially really good game? Is
That
the question.
is a new game.
This is my opinion on it, because, and I think sometimes the word loses meaning because of how game publishers like release games, even though it's not remake. So I think a true to life remake of a video game. So I would put Resident Evil 4 in there. I would put Shadow of the Colossus in there. Even as much as it didn't hit for me, the Final Fantasy VII remake is another great example. I think like those 3 games specifically are great examples of what I would consider true remakes of like, hey, this game has been rebuilt from the ground up, and it has, either in Shadow of the Colossus cases, like minor additions, and then from Resident Evil to Final Fantasy VII stepping upwards, they're like massive changes, right? So like in each one.
Final Fantasy VII is almost like a reimagining.
That's almost a new
Right, it's like a
It's
reboot,
the
right?
same
But it still has the same. Yeah, it's like this. It's
Complicated.
I could get into a whole other topic about that, but that's my point, right? Is that like if a game does something like those, what we're talking about, I think it is totally fair to include that in the topic for this is a brand new release that came out this year. Sure. Those things. Everything else that's not what I just described, in my mind, should have been called a remaster, not remake, like the way that some people throw that word around. And those games do not, like, for instance, Metroid Prime Remaster is all over people's list this year. I do not believe that it should be on people's list. As much as I dug Metroid Prime Remastered, like, I was very happy that it came out, and two, it's probably the de facto way to go play that game now, right? Like, it looks better, it plays better, all that stuff, right? So there's that, but it's just Metroid Prime again. There's nothing. Like, it is just
looks nicer.
And even by look nicer, it's really just like cleaned up, but it's the same textures, it's the same everything, right? Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I don't think anything like that should not be included. You're just I don't think it counts.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. So, to me, it's like you got personal list and we got testing room list, right? Testing room, we usually don't pretty much put like any like kind of remake, even like maybe like a Final Fantasy VII might get the squeeze in there, but like I don't think we're going to be putting some of the remakes into those top spots. As far as who knows, we'll get to that conversation when we get to that conversation whether or not Resident Evil 4 comes in there. But like we'll get to that. But I feel like at least my personal one is if it is a pre-existing game, it's probably not going to get on there unless, like Christian said, there's a little bit more to it. So if you just put like like the Turtles collection or something like that, if one of those games came out and it just had like the box art and stuff like that in the menu, I'm not going to consider that a remake. I'm going to consider that a remaster with some extra accoutrements, whatever. But something like Resident Evil Rebirth or something like that is to me a completely different game. It's still not Resident Evil Rebirth. I told you guys I was tired today. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That is to me a completely new game. Like yes, it is Cloud. It's kind of around that same story, but they're changing the story. They changed the way some things plan out. That to me is a new game. So I would consider that be a contender, like as far as the top 10. But something like maybe the Resident Evil 4, where it's mostly the same game. Yes, like maybe the parries work a little bit different, and there's a little bit more on top of that makes it a different, like a little bit more of a different game. But to me, Resident Evil 4, that's still the same game, right? It looks a lot better. It's made with a different engine. Sure. Me personally, on my personal list, I wouldn't put a Resident Evil 4, even if I loved it, back on that list. Same way he wouldn't put the Metroid Prime remaster on his list. I think it needs to have more to it than just it's the same game, like the copy and paste, like Travis says.
I am going to say, in defense of Resident Evil 4, it is not the same game. They change a bunch about it. The only thing that's the same is the story.
Sure.
But
if we have a conversation later on this month, we'll have that conversation later on this month. But we're not going to have it now.
Yes. I'm just saying, in defense of that, it's not.
The personal list is whatever you want.
I agree. I think if it's your personal list, if it was one of the best 10 games that you played, or 15 games, or however long
your
want
list
your list to be, I think that's fine. I don't think those games should be considered up for like Game of the Year, right? Like if they want to be nominated for an award for best remakes, and there's other things in that category, if you're talking about like actual award shows and stuff, that's fine. I don't think they should be considered Game of the Year, especially if they didn't change the story. Final Fantasy VII, Christian, to your point, was kind of like a reimagining, right? And that reboot. So I think if you did enough to change the story, that's okay along with everything else. But if you just changed the mechanics, the engine, if you changed some of the things but the story is the same.
If you change the game.
I don't think I would be okay with like really letting that take a spot of something, especially in a year like this year where you had 10, we could easily find 10 unique games.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not hard.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I just, like on your own, I just don't think it should take away on the limited spots, especially in like award shows, right? And I don't say that because like RE4 is not nominated for like a Game of the Year at any of the shows I've seen, so it's not like it's a problem. But I would not consider that, up for the debate if the story is still the same.
Got some nominations, but I don't think it was nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I don't know, we'll get into it far too hard, but it's, to me, as long as they are, the story, if the story is the same, that's not to me what like if everything else about the game is different that makes it a different game, then it's different enough to me. Because by that argument, like, only the back fourth of Final Fantasy VII Remake makes it a different game. Everything else is the exact same. Know.
Other than it's a completely different way of playing game as well. But yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's not the same type of... Like, it's not just like you took the pixels and replaced those models with other ones. It's still a whole different way of playing the combat.
Right, but the same argument would be said about Resident Evil remake.
Yeah, I mean, I would even be willing for you to make an argument that 7 doesn't count, rather than go the opposite way and say RE
Sure.
should, right?
Sure.
Like, I would be more open to that one than the other way. Just to each their own. And I understand it is, like you said, Christian, a completely different game. But, like, if the story is the same, and it still may hit, so this isn't taking away from that. But if the story is the same, you know what to expect. Like, in my opinion, you know what it is going into it. The game isn't really that different. I know that the gameplay is different. The game is different. But if the story is the same, it's something that was a great success previously, right? RE4 was like arguably the greatest Resident Evil made. So that still stands within reason. But
the way that I would split it
up,
up
new
is like,
games this year that you
if
probably
we split it up by like, I'll even like if we split it up to say like the things that make up a game, right? And it's like story is 25%, gameplay is another 25%, sound is another 25%, blah, and we do that. If 75% of the game is different, then it's over half. Then it's a different thing.
But also at that point, you're saying how much do you weigh certain parts of the game? So
I was gonna say I think those things are weighed differently, though, right? Like story is weighed differently than sound.
And that's a personal thing to where it's what weighs.
Sure, okay, yes, but to my point, then are you saying that story makes up 90% of a video game?
I think you should judge story pretty heavily with the way story and the way they tell their story, meaning like gameplay mechanics should weigh the heaviest. Sound shouldn't really be part of it. I mean, games have great sound. Halo is some of the greatest sound I've ever seen, but doesn't mean like that alone should nominate Halo for one of the best games that came out the year it came out, right? Like things weight differently.
Sound design is its own award at shows, but also
and again, that's fine. Like I totally think it can be nominated for its own stuff, but like for a top game of the year with limited space, I don't know. Even if
you were to split it and say story is 50% of the game and everything else is 50%, if half the game is different, then it becomes a different thing. To me,
it's how you weigh certain parts of the game personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think
totally fine to put on your top 10, your personal list, right?
I think personal lists should not do remasters anyway. I think staying true to the essence of what a top 10 each year is supposed to be
of the year.
I think it needs to. Yeah, it has to be. But that's what, to me. I think if you do a full blown, from the ground up remake, it counts as a new product. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
because we get we get so few of those anyway. Because people like, for instance, like when Sony does The Last of Us.
I was gonna say we'll have this debate. We'll have this debate next year when The Last of Us 2 is nominated for Game of the Year again.
Right, so, and then everybody should be irritated about it because it's not. Because that's
we'll have
not
this
a real
debate
thing.
for real. No, it's not. Not 3 years when you had a SKU for the modern console.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that is kind of your slippery slope. Like, if say this is a complete hypothetical, but say next year, Modern Warfare 2 was remade again. Modern Warfare 2 was remade. Tears of the Kingdom 1 was remade in a new engine for a new, more powerful Switch. Then you had The Last of Us 2, right? And the only other game you had in that category was like a new indie IP, like a Dredge or like the Diver. Like, I would be upset if one of those other games that were previously nominated for their body of work was considered the same as like something different and new, because you're just not riding those coattails, but riding the nostalgia, riding a
less of a risk.
Successful product. It is much less of a risk. And it's already got its accolades.
So everything that you've just described is a remaster, in my opinion. That's why I was saying in the beginning of this, like, the word isn't used correctly by publishers, so that anything like, if something gets re-released on a new console or something like that, or even if, like, I'll say, for example, even if, like, every single time that Resident Evil 4 has been re-released throughout the years does not count for this. Like, even though, like, it got ported to a more powerful console and got added motion controls when it had the Wii thing, that's not a remake. It is just a re-release of the game on a different console. To me, a remake means everything from this game has been scrapped. We have thrown out everything from this game And the only thing we have left up is the original storyboarding that we had, like when we were first whiteboarding this fucking game to begin with. And then we said, okay, now from the ground we are building everything brand new, and we're doing different things with it, like new mechanics, new all this. We're changing all these things. That to me is what constitutes the word remake, and everything else after that is a remaster. And people are just publishers. Publishers use the word remake to try to get people to buy something because remaster doesn't sell as well.
Sure. In my hypothetical, I would be just irritated if you replace the titles that I said with like Metal Gear Solid OG top down and, you know, Zelda the Kingdom of Gamelon and something else, right? Like the stuff would still, that in my opinion, that opinion would still hold true. Like I would still rather see something maybe new for the year versus something that like has had proven success redone. Just for my game of the year. In my
the reason that I think that it's the proven success part doesn't work is because
it's also it's also Wand of Gamelon. I'm sure I'll get a text from
Jake.
From Jake being like, "You MFer,
you fake fan." No, because you can fuck it up, right? Like if you were to rebuild Metal Gear Solid completely and it played like shit and didn't work anymore, but you still had the story, everybody would be like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to play that. That doesn't sound fun." And then it wouldn't get like you. When you remake something, you have to make it good. I mean, case in point, that's why Final Fantasy VII Remake is so divisive, is because like they changed a whole heck of a lot, but did they change it in a good way? I don't know. You have to fucking be the person to figure that out. But
the fighting was fun. I really enjoyed the fighting mechanics, and you know that was great.
Yep.
Still haven't played it.
You'll get there one day.
I do.
You know, if you hold out, I bet if you hold out to the end of the month, it hit its lowest price at like $20-something on Steam over Thanksgiving. I bet you it dropped slightly below that. Holiday
honestly,
for $20.
You still got Final Fantasy 12 to get through, so I bet you.
I'm good for now. I got Persona 3 coming out next year. I got plenty of JRPGs to get through before I can get to touch
you. I think the time you touch it is when all 3 parts of that game are released in one giant 3-disc collector thing.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And it'll be 700 gigs on the PlayStation 5.
A couple terabytes is fine.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see if it still comes. If part 3, we'll see if it still happens. Knowing this company, knowing this series, it could be another 15 years, and like 4 other different games.
I don't know, dude.
Rebirth, 2 more mobile ones.
Rebirth had a pretty quick turnaround. To be fair,
yeah. Next year, yeah.
Was it? Oh, what would that be? 4 years?
4 years.
4 years? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
3 didn't it come out during COVID?
No, it came out before COVID, didn't
right
it?
Before COVID.
I think just before
gotcha.
COVID.
Okay. 3 or 4 years.
I could. Yeah. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
FF7R release date. It was so stupid. Whenever you Google it now, it's like, hey, it comes out February 29th, 2024, huh? So dumb. Anyway, I'm not. I care no longer. I don't care anymore. It's over. I've lost interest. So anyway, who wants to start on their week?
I probably have the longest week, so
I can start. I got a short week.
Okay.
All right. Just gonna start off with the usual. We're always snapping. Keep on snapping. Nothing super new to go with. Playing a new Shuri deck. It's got an Nihilus in it. Jake, we heard you. We get it. You're a nerd. You know who Nihilus was. I've never fucking heard of him or ever seen him. All right.
Also, just so we're clear, I'm completely separate in this. All the sass you're getting is from.
I like to toss him some sass every once in a while. It's fine. I get my comic books from him.
Tired Preston is sassy Preston.
Oh yeah, it'll come out.
That's the truth.
But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. They've been doing really good. I love the meta of Snap right now. It just seems the past like 6 or so months, it's kind of been like, here's a new big card. We all kind of play this deck. You'll see this deck fucking nonstop. So I usually try to play the counter to that deck in my deck. And it's just, you kind of see that it's going to be the Loki deck for this past month. It's going to be Shuri deck for this past month. This past month, it seemed like I get a lot more variety. I'm seeing a lot more different type of cards out there, different types of decks, just kind of changing it up. It's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it. The publisher, Newverse, has decided to stop doing anything with their gaming division. So we will see what happens with that. Second Dinner is the one who makes the game, but Newverse is the one who publishes it and kind of, I guess, helps shove money into it. But apparently it's expensive, and I'm sure the Marvel license is not cheap. So
I will tell you this: there is no shot this game dies. I bet you so.
It's making a lot of money. It's still making a lot of money. Yeah, it's making plenty of money.
Someone is going to be chomping at the bit to buy up the studio.
Yeah. So
it is interesting though that somebody would be willing to step back from that.
Well, they're stepping back as far as like their gaming division is stepping back. Like, hey, we're gonna kind of get rid of our gaming division of this company because all their other fucking games apparently, I guess, are doing horrible. So they're like, we're gonna step back from gaming. Now, does that mean all of gaming, or are they gonna be like, well, we'll keep Marvel there because Marvel gives us all that fucking money? Who knows? We'll see.
And pull back from
But
that.
But we're just
I'm
not
not
going to do
worried
new
about it.
projects.
I'm not worried about it. But yeah, it's been fun.
No, your game will be fine.
I'm not too worried. If anything, they get less money from me. Who knows? But yeah, no, I've been enjoying that. Snapping's always good. El Paso Elsewhere is still going. I think by the time this comes out, we probably should be done with it. I think this coming Sunday is going to be the last Sunday for El Paso Elsewhere. It's been a lot of fun. We will finish it as long as the game wants to work for me. Christian has noticed it once. I don't know if Christian. I don't think he was paying attention to the last Sunday, to where it was finally getting to like boss battles, like big guys. They actually got like health bars and shit. So I'm like, okay, we're getting some serious boss battles. This dude's like chasing you through a couple levels, and then now it's like, okay, you're not able to kill him the entire time, and now he's like, okay, well, fuck this, and you say something to him to piss him off. He takes off his whatever shield, spiritual shield or whatever, and now you can take him down. It chugs. It's like 2 frames a second. Like, it's bad.
Oof.
And for a game to where like you're running and gunning and trying to do stuff in slow mo and stuff like that, like you can't hit things. Like, I will have a shotgun. I'll have like add enemies coming at me. I will shoot, and because of the stutter happens right then and there, it's not like the game is continuing to play. It's just I can't see it. No, the game stopped there, and my shot didn't go off, and I didn't kill that character in front of me. So it's getting a little frustrating. If it continues to happen, I might drop the game, but I'm so close. I'm so close to beating it. I want to beat it. But if it doesn't let me, it doesn't let me.
Is it a game problem?
I think so. There's not that much going on. If my PC can handle the first act so far of Baldur's Gate 3, it should be able to handle a smaller indie game like El Paso Elsewhere. It's not doing a whole lot.
If you go back and look at some of his streams too, because I saw the first time, because you're right, I didn't see the second time because I had left so that we could meet up. But yeah, the first time I saw it, it's very clearly like it just seems like it's just unoptimized in certain respects, because like the game will be totally fine, and then like it breaks itself. Like it was
a level puts in too many enemies that's not used to be putting into, so therefore it just doesn't know how to process it, and it pulls them in before it actually puts them in the game, so it has to put them in the game after that. It's just there's a whole lot going on that I don't think the engine is prepared to do.
And similar to your example, Preston, about Baldur's Gate 3, like it was like, I know it was fixed by the time you got there, Alex, but like same thing happened to me at the end of Baldur's Gate 3 when I got to the end. It was just like it was crumbling under itself of everything it was trying to do. It's not that your computer
couldn't handle it. It's just that the game itself
the start of Act 3 did that to me, I remember. But when I went back and finished it, it had been updated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's great. I've actually been listening to the album. They put out a whole rap album you can find on Spotify for El Paso Elsewhere. It's this guy, I think it's Jack Savage, but he put it out there, and it's really good. It's the same guy who does the voice for the main character. I think he's one of the main creators of the game. Same kind of Max Payne kind of deal, to where it's he just did a whole rap album for this. It's actually pretty decent. Some of those songs in there are actually pretty good. Yeah, so if you want to check that out, it's on Spotify. Definitely take a listen. And then lastly, outside of the game we're playing today for the VGBC, I played a lot more of Cassette Beasts. So I am pretty much done. I got maybe like 2 hours left in it. I went hard. Like, the story was going. I wasn't stopping. There was a certain point where I'm like, man, you get to certain places and you go like up or down, and it's like the character NPC that's with you is like, hey man, I don't know, it seems like we're pretty low level to be here. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what other missions I got. Let's go do other things. But it seems the grind is not super hard to take care of. So it's the grind. There's plenty of missions to go out and do on the side to kind of take care of some other business, and you'll get up to those levels no problem. I'm pretty sure I got all the side NPCs that you could bring along with you. You can only actually take one with you, but you get to choose. And the last one was the artist, the gentleman who had the cat drawing, let's say. And you had to go to shrines with him and the cat.
There's one more that you missed that I know that you would have gotten it, you would have freaked out. Did you not find the puppy?
No.
No.
Just look it up so you can go get it.
I'll Google that before I even play it next time. Yeah, no, I know I gotta have the puppy now.
I know you do.
It's been me and Kaylee the entire time, so we've
Yeah.
But it's been a lot of fun. Got some cool fusions with that. Fusion powers now, which is a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm getting the companions up to a certain social link, whatever.
Yeah. And the animations for those moves are dope.
The animations are great. They're great. And if you do change it up a little bit, like the power does change, but the color variation of it might change, or what it does might change, which is really a lot of fun depending on what beast you're using. But I've been enjoying that a lot. Let's see. Was there anything I wanted to say about it? It's kind of hard to think about what I want to say about that game without spoiling it.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to leave it for Game of the Year before I go too much more into it. But been enjoying it a lot. I already told my friend, like, hey, I know I told you should probably play this, and you and your kid love Pokemon. Maybe you could play it together. Told him maybe not do that. I'm like, hey, how about you kind of check out some trailers and stuff like that, see if the tone's right, because it deals with some mental stuff, and it's got some moida in there. It's like nothing grotesque, nothing bloody or anything like that, but people get got.
It does get a little heavy.
People get got. It gets heavy. So I'm like, I don't know.
People do get got.
Yeah, and it's some very unsettling imagery and stuff like that. It's just not that it's grotesque. It's just that it's odd and can throw someone off and be kind of creepy and weird. So, hey, just check it out. Then you can find out for yourself. So I've been loving that. But yeah, other than that, that's all I've been doing.
It took me a second to realize you said murder when you said moida.
Moida?
It took me a moment to be like, what? I was like, is that an acronym? Like, what could that possibly stand for? And I was like,
tired of slinging my words.
Murder.
Yeah, moida. Yeah, it's moida. You moided him. Did watch something. I watched the Blue Beetle movie. It's on Max. It's very good. I actually enjoyed it. It's a nice little fun little romp. I had nothing.
Was the sword kick as cool as it was in the trailer?
Fucking rad. It was like,
hell
it's
yeah.
Like, wait, you can create anything, I imagine? Like, anything you imagine. He's like, bet. All right, let's do this. And that's when the fucking Buster Sword kicks out. I'm like, there it is. Okay, that's cool. But yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff. If you're a big fan of Blue Beetle, you like it. If you like the old Blue Beetle, let's just say there's plenty in there for you as well. But yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot.
I'm sure James Gunn is kicking back and going, well, yeah, I'm glad you like it for now, because you'll never see any more of him again.
Nope, he said Blue Beetle is a part of his DC universe.
Did he?
Sure, he did.
Sure, but keep in mind, he also said that animated and live action are the same thing in his universe, so some people that are live action now may only be animated later.
We'll see when it happens. He says a lot of things. We'll see what happens.
In fairness, you probably be able to do way cooler stuff with Blue Beetle if he's animated, so...
The animated movies for DC have always been pretty dope.
I do like those, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you were able...
Tiny Flower Love.
If you were able to do that really cool sword kick live action, I bet that you'd be able to do something real sick animated, but that's just me.
Yeah, he was in a show. He was on the animated
Preston, how long do you have Constantine written on your monitor, just in case? Like,
no, but I did say Constantine. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta say it the other way now. It's just a stick now. It's a shtick.
Yeah, the best part is that when I didn't say anything because I didn't want him to correct himself in Publix. But no, it was when we were
comic shop.
Preston and I were hanging at this retro store the other day, and I found on the ground was this giant Constantine novel thing. Yeah, it was.
No, it's Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Omnibus.
Yeah, but I thought that had to do with isn't Constantine in that?
Constantine might show up in it here and there, but that's about it.
Yeah, anyway,
Constantine at least ties into that universe.
Yeah, so anyway, I pulled it out and I was like, oh, look, it's a Constantine thing. And he was like, oh, sick, blah, blah, blah. And he didn't say anything. And I was like, yeah, that's...
people. I don't...
And I was like, don't you just now? You did it like 3 times here.
I didn't correct you.
I'm surprised I didn't walk up to the guy. I didn't walk up to the guy and go, "Excuse me, sir. Help me out here. Does Sandman cross over in the universe with John Constantine?"
The Hell Blazer.
Yeah, probably would.
The guy would look at you.
Spit on the floor.
Hell Blazer.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
No, it was good.
Amazing. Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Nice
I'll go
fun.
next.
Yeah.
Because I also have a fairly short week, just because I was traveling for work. So I've dabbled in a lot of games this week, mostly because I received my new Steam Deck. So I picked up one of the Steam Deck limited edition ones.
Oh,
and it looks
ones.
awesome. Yeah, super fancy one. The great thing is it was only $20 difference. So it's
Nice.
not like you had to go out of your way. Like 20, that's nothing, right? That's awesome. So it's pretty cool. The joysticks are like not the joystick thumb holders, but the actual sticks themselves that connect to the unit are orange. The fan grates are orange. The power button is orange. Like all the accents are orange, which is really, really cool on like a smoky, transparent case. So it's super dope. But because I got that in, I was doing all the setting up, getting all my games over, getting all my legally purchased and self-made ROMs over. In the emulators and all that. So I dabbled in a lot of stuff. So, as always, I'm continuing to play The Man Who Erased His Name. So, Like a Dragon, Gaiden. It continues to be good. It is super wacky. I am now in a part where it's just like every mission is you're trying to fight your way up through the Coliseum and get fans and get ranks, and it's literally just a fight club. And it's like, go do some fights, and now that you've earned enough respect, you can go to like another unlocked area of this place, talk to some people, progress the story, then go fight some more. So I'm now in the gold area, Christian. I'm in chapter 3. I know there's only 5, but I'm in the gold, and I'm trying to work my way up to the platinum, which they say is like the highest rank of that.
You don't have to do that, but you only need to get gold to continue with the story.
Oh, really? Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Because like that. The Coliseum is easy. Getting the Akami network, Akami is one of the characters in the game. Getting that to level 20 is much more tedious. So I'm glad I don't have to do that because I'm only like level 16 and like, oh boy.
Nope, I finished the game at like level 13 or 14 with that thing.
Okay, cool. Then great. So we will be cruising to the end on that one. I continue to play Halo. And I know I'm still not good enough to play Jake, and I'll tell you why. Because our buddy Jake listens to our podcast.
So just Jake, huh?
Well, no, but I'll tell you, this is why, right? Because you would invite me to play, but remember I put out that I would love to play with Jake, like if he's ever on in the morning. And he never responded to that open self invite into his game. It wasn't even like a hey, this is really like time with my dad. It's really personal, which I'd be like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. It was like I can't even get your messages this high in the sky. Like they don't. You're too bad, and you're gonna make us lose. So keep trying, and then come back, right? So
now for everybody at home, they should be very well aware that Jake said nothing of the sort.
This is complete.
Alex
This is
complete inferring all of this. Yeah, this is just him inferring all of this. Yeah.
Complete sarcasm. I've been playing Halo. Still fun, right? It's filled that gap that I always used with like Destiny multiplayer. So that's great. And I'm playing it on the Steam Deck, and it's been flawless on the Steam Deck, which is fantastic as well. In fact, half the time it actually loads up faster than it does on PC. So there's that.
Yeah.
What else have I dabbled in? I dabbled in Mass Effect 1 Legendary because, goodness, just both two disgusted faces instantly.
Trying to play catch up on Game of the Year. Motherfuckers over here playing Mass Effect.
All right, fuck.
I mean, I've done a lot of the games I needed to do. Yeah, I've done a lot of my games. I just have to finish like a dragon. But I've beaten that game many times. I've never beaten that game on Insanity, so I just, for shits and giggles, started an Insanity run of Mass Effect 1. Played it for like an hour and a half. Did fine. I did fine.
Sure.
So, why? What's the?
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, the beginning of that game on Insanity is not the problem.
Well, everybody says 1's actually not that difficult. It's apparently 2 is just like.
I mean, 2 gets shitty because of the powers they can have, but yeah, no, 1 is at the end of it with mostly it's the fucking shitty ass boss fight with Saren where every single he's fucking bouncing around like this and every single hit that he does can kill you. But yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not something like I played the first day I was getting games over. I haven't played since then. But again, it's been a week of dabbling, right? So I dabbled in that. I played, of course, the game we're going to talk about tonight, and I continued on like really kind of 100%ing those areas, which I have some added lore into the story as we move on tonight from stuff that I found. And then I played. I'm forgetting. I played an older game, like a ROM of some sort, and I don't remember what it is. I just know when you look at my Steam Deck, it's like all these new games and like some old game I played, and I completely forget what that old game was. But again, It was more dabbling. So yeah, that was my week in games. I don't know if I said this a few weeks ago. I also watched a show I think both of you would really enjoy on Netflix, called
Netflix,
Blue Eye Samurai.
Oh, I've heard
Have you guys heard of that?
I have. Yep. Looks good.
So Tom Cruise movie?
Yeah. No, it's so it's a female protagonist in the Edo period of Japan. It's an anime. And essentially it's back when Japan, due to a bunch of different factors, just closed off all their borders to Westerners and anybody that wasn't Japanese and ran everybody out. And the story is about one Blue Eye Samurai who is essentially the bastard child of one of those Westerners, Europeans in Japan, and there are only 4 left in the country, and she's trying to figure out who her dad was, and she's actually trying to like hunt her dad down because he was really crappy to her mom, left them just like starving out and like to fend for themselves to die, and because she has blue eyes, she is just looked at as like essentially lower than animals in Japan, right? Like no one will help them out, no one will talk to them, sort of thing. Those are really it's a good story, but it's really fun animation. There's some CGI animation in there, but it doesn't really take away, like the story really outweighs some of that. But it's Netflix original anime, and I've been super hit and miss on those in the past, but this one's really, really good. And cool topic, again, Japanese. I will say, for anybody that wants to watch it, it is adult. There is nudity in it. It's not a Devilman Crybaby situation. So if you're familiar with that, like it's not egregious like that. Yeah. It typically has to do with the story, and it's mostly used to show either the power dynamics between like the feudal lords and the concubines, or it's used by some of the prostitutes of the town to manipulate others, right? So like you'll see it in those scenes, but it's not just like nudity for nudity's sake sort of thing, if you care about that. More in case anybody out there listening has kids and wants to watch it, just be careful watching with your kids. But it's really good, and I think it's not long. It's like eight or so episodes, but it was like episode 6 or 7 might be like one of the best just standalone like episodes of any TV show I've watched in a long time, like across the gamut from like normal TV to superhero whatever. Like it was just tight, really good. So check that out. You should. Each episode I think is an hour, but it's really, really, really good. So, but yeah, cool. I think that's it for me. Yeah. I don't think I've played anything else. So, you know.
All right, I can go. So I played a shit ton of games. So I finished Like a Dragon Gaiden, and it's very good. Alex, to your point about the comment, my biggest takeaway, I can't say anything about the story. The story is literally just, it's a gap between, it fits in between Kiryu from Yakuza 6 and then what he was doing during the events of Yakuza 7. Alex, it ends exactly where we thought it was going to end. It's not surprising. It's like, cool. Yep. So it's exactly what everybody thought it would be. With the addendum that there is extra information that happens at the end that leads into Like a Dragon 8, and it is very good. It's so well done. That being said, my main gripe with the game is that you can it's sort of at odds with itself in certain aspects of, you can tell that the story is just a little bit too big to be considered DLC, but the game itself is it's a little bit too big to be DLC, but a little bit too small to be its own game. And so what ends up happening is they have to try to put things in to sort of make it seem like it doesn't take up the weird sort of... I would say the closest analog to it would be like the Miles Morales Spider-Man game. And the Miles Morales Spider-Man game had a similar problem, as to which there was a lot of good things in that game, but there was a lot of stuff that also was a lot of busy work to sort of justify itself as its own separate product. And it sort of happens here. I will say that the only time that you sort of feel it in Yakuza is with what Alex is talking about, the Akami network. It's a character in the game that you have to sort of build up to sort of help get like information so that you can sort of know the goings on and blah, blah, blah for story reasons. But a lot of it is extremely tedious and does it just sort of you can tell that it's just to pad length. That being said, like, every other side activity...
It's a bigger version of what you have in the other games. Like all of those games have the like city tasks to do, but like they've somehow expanded that to be more than what they usually are.
Well, they expanded them because they condensed side quests into them. So like
that's true.
Normally with a Yakuza game, you would have side quests that they would just be like full-on side adventures that you would see as you were roaming around or whatever, and that's what you would sort of dig into. For instance, the business management sim that's in Yakuza 7 is a great example of a side quest that is totally missable. You don't have to do it, but when you do, it becomes this giant, long, drawn-out mission that has tons of shit going on and all sorts of stuff, right? They sort of took those missions and then put them into this sort of grindy Akami network thing to sort of give you a reason to want to go do it, because some of the stories... Some of the quests that you end up doing during those missions are funny and good, but they are spread out and tacked along in such a way that you're just like, oh my god, dude, this is a chore. Like, there was one night that I straight up was like, my eyes were closing. Like, I was like, I'm going to go to sleep. This is crazy.
I actually had that on the couch the other night before I left for work this week. Same thing. I was doing some of those random side quests and had to realize what I was doing, and I just paused it and like took a nap. I was like, this is literally putting me to sleep. Like I just
yeah. That being said, all of the other side activities like are just as quality as they would be in every other Yakuza game, right? Like the race car one is really well done. The crane mini games, the golf, the batting, like everything that you would want. All of those things are still, there's pool, all of it. Karaoke is still as good as karaoke needs to be, except this time it's Kiryu's big dumb face in it as opposed to Ichiban's. It's great. So that's where I'm kind of sitting at on it. Is it's like, I think the closest thing to say is it's a lot like the Miles Morales like Spider-Man game in that regard. That being said, the story is such a 10 out of 10 slam dunk that it outweighs I literally, as soon as I got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, the game doesn't want me to do this Akami network anymore, great, see ya, and then just pedal to the metal right through the story. I didn't care anymore because I was like, I don't have to deal with it. But that being said, I loved it. It was very, very good. Those like gripes aside, the story was just as impactful that you would want out of a Yakuza game. Oops, sorry, that's gonna come through as very fun noise.
I mean, you're pretty sure, like, you can feel that this is a send off to Kiryu, yeah, because like, there's a couple of different times, like there's. You run into that character that's been in old games, that lady that like has a huge crush on him, and then even in the Coliseum, you do that one fight that's like that classic Kiryu fight against the Yakuza and other stuff. Like, it seems like there are parts where you're definitely reliving hits of the past. So it just kind of has that.
Yeah, it is. A send off is kind of I don't know. It's tough. It is definitely a greatest hits, and it is definitely like it is definitely a passing of the torch as far as protagonists go. Like, but by the end, there's definitely a little bit of like, this old dog still got some stuff in him. Like, it's that kind of thing. Like, they still go for it. It's very good though. So the next two games that I played are also games that one of them was the game that Alex, you had played earlier this year, and then one that I wanted to get to this year. So I played Chance of Sonar.
There you go.
Very, very good puzzle game. It's basically I know we've talked about this before. I won't go too far into it because I know Alex already gave a whole big speech about it, but it is like if somebody took the language stuff from Tunic and Fez and then said, I can make a whole fucking game out of this. Like, and that's basically what they go for. I got the quote unquote true ending, so I went through and, did the whole thing. It is really, really well done. I think there was only one area that didn't like jive with me too. I didn't like the bard area.
The art where they're all artists.
Yeah, and the whole gimmick is like the last word moves to the front or whatever. I was like, this is fun. I don't really care about that though. Like, but every other mechanic for each area of uncovering the language was very well done. I really liked that. The story was really fun and good. It's about, I would say, if you wanted to go like start to finish and get like the true, it's about like 9 hours, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad. It's very good. I liked it a lot though. The next game is another puzzle game. So I checked out Viewfinder.
Oh yeah.
So Viewfinder, if you guys don't remember, I know Preston clearly remembers when he says, "Oh yeah," but Alex, I could see you very inquisitive looking. It is the game that you would solve puzzles by taking stills of pieces of the environment and then being able to place them in different places, right? So the story here is that there was this simulation that people were building out that created this whole process. Earth is hit by like a climate disaster, and people are trying to delve into this simulation where people were basically like in a pocket dimension building a climate change fixing machine, and you're supposed to go in. Nobody has heard from them in forever, and so you're supposed to go in and try to get the machine out so that you can save the planet and nobody has to die. Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. So that's the story, or that's the premise, I should say. I won't go into it. The narrative is probably the weakest part for me. It ends up resolving to me, I thought it was just okay. Like, it resolves in a way that I was like, yeah, it's fine. It sort of makes sense. It's pretty much by the numbers in that opinion. I saw a lot of people who felt very differently and that this story like affected them greatly. I was not one of those people, but that's video games. That being said, mechanically speaking, solving puzzles in this game was fucking so awesome. The closest thing I can describe it to is the feeling that I got when I first played Portal, where I was like, this is changing about how I think about puzzles, like in video games. Like, it's making me switch the way that my brain thinks about stuff. That is how Viewfinder worked for me.
Kind of like the witness.
Are there any bounds
to
it?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Huh?
Are there any bounds to like how you can move those pictures around and go, or do they just account for like however you want to?
Not only are there bounds to it, but there is like in the later levels they start introducing like modifiers and rules that change the rules and how you would interact with something, and they're very good about showing you in small steps. So like something happen, like a change that'll happen, or a change will happen, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then it'll go, okay, now it's this, but just one extra thing. And then one extra thing. By the end of it, you're solving a puzzle that by the end of that section of levels, you would be solving a puzzle that if they dropped you in the first go, you'd be like, I have no fucking clue. But they do a nice gradual setup, and the challenge levels are just that. There are challenges. Like there was, one that it took me quite a long time, and the game will not let you sit there and suffer. Like if now on challenge levels, to be fair, I think it will just let you sit there and you'll just have to figure it out. But in the regular, all the levels that count towards progression, if you sit for like, I think it's like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something, and you don't get it, it'll be like, hey, go to the pause menu if you want to hit. And even then, in the hints, it's like, think about this. Like, maybe think this way. Like, look at it this way. And then you'll be like, oh. And so it still won't just outright give you the answer, but it'll start trying to be like, have you considered blank? And you'll be like, I did not consider that. Thank you, video game. I will think about it like that from now on. But it really was, for me, it was like, it was recapturing that same feeling that I had with Portal, where like, you know, I'm assuming you guys both played Portal. I feel like everybody has played Portal, but yeah, so like, but it's like one of those things, it's like, when you first discovered momentum in Portal, remember, like, there was that level where it was sitting there and showing like things like flying super fast through, and then it was like, yeah, you can use that to like jump and like fling yourself, and you were like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Now this is going to open up so many more things that I didn't think about. It's like that. Like it's very well done in that regard. And the best part about it is that it is mad short. It's like 3.5 hours long. And it is the perfect Steam Deck game. It is fucking fantastic. I think it's like $10, so it's very appropriately priced. Fantastic.
Nice.
So then the next game that I started playing, shout out to Preston, was Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Hey, yeah, dog.
So, and that's sort of my main, like, if I'm out of the TV, you know, or out on the console, I've been playing on the Xbox. That's the game that I've been digging into. I am on, I guess, the first planet. It's after the tutorial planet.
Yeah. I think of the main
I met up with Grease. He was doing his thing.
Greasy money, baby.
Greasy money. I forgot that's what that's what you called him. But yeah, so I'm headed towards the forest array right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I met like the old Republic droid and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, it was
the High Republic droid.
I apologize.
Old Republic,
High Republic
is non-canon, remember?
Right, I remember. It's making me want to quit the game again. Anyway, so but it is. It's cool. I think my only complaint so far, and I don't know if this will stay true or whatever, but looking at all of the skill tree and how things are, like, even the ones that are still broken right now.
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, this feels like too much. I think Cal needs less and needs like less things that are better as opposed to a shit ton of things that are okay. The reason I say that is like, so one of the first skills that you unlock is for the single lightsaber. It's like Cal just sort of going forward and poking forward. It's like hold Y and the way it describes it and what happens are two very different things. It's like, it basically describes a skewer from Devil May Cry. It's like lunge forward and dash like at the enemy with like the lights, like as a first attack. But then when you do it, Cal is like, like it is very like.
Well, yeah, he's not using the Force to lunge himself. He's just doing a little dirt jab.
Even like a bacha would be better than just like this.
Show
like
you a video of the jab.
And it lets you do it, and it's very flaccid. Like he's just like, and you're like,
here's what I'll tell you, Christian. You can carry 2 stances at one time. And more. So just figure out which 2 you like. Like I ended up doing one heavy with a crossblade, and I ended up doing the other like basic. I did not change anything from that point on to the end of the game, so don't worry about all the skills.
So I've already done that. Like I agree. Yeah. But that's kind of my point, is that I'm like, if I have to sit there and be like, okay, I can just ignore all this other shit. Maybe let's bring, because my first thought was like, I got the double-sided one, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, because then you press Y on that one, and he fucking whips it around and it spins and cuts everybody, and you're like, that's way cooler than what I just unlocked a second ago. But then on top of that, then he breaks him in half, and it's you got two, and all the moves for that are way cool. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll just delete the single one. I don't give a fuck. I'll put the double-sided and then the two-handed and be done. But that's it. It feels like how you guys sort of talked about the new Spider-Man game, where you were just like, this is a lot. Like, there is just so much here, and it.
I mean, this is every Horizon, Assassin's Creed,
Horizon.
Batman.
Thank you. I knew I had played a game that did Horizon exactly the same way. There's so many skills that I ignored for Aloy and Horizon, where I'm just like, you didn't need this.
You'll find your flavor. You'll max out that section, and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do all the other rest for like health upgrades and shit.
And the only other is I don't know what it is about who they have doing their animation rigging over at Respawn. Cal's run cycle is so goofy and awkward, and I do not understand
wide
why.
With it.
He goes like this. He runs like this. He goes like, like it is so wide. Weird. Like I can't not see it and the hilarious part is that every other character model in the game does not run like that. All of the mercenary people that hang out with you run like normal human beings. The droids run like normal droids. The stormtroopers run like normal human beings. He's the only one who's like, break. It's so
It's that
goofy.
they took motion capture from an actor who doesn't usually do motion capture for video games and told him to run in a straight line for like 5 seconds, and then they just took that as his like run animation.
But man, let him get a couple takes in there or something, because somebody in that place should have been
didn't know.
Okay, everybody should have looked at him and been like, okay, now run like a human. Run like a human now. Don't.
Allie has the same feeling towards anytime I ever turn on Final Fantasy X, of course, and then they gave Sora the same run that Titus has in Kingdom Hearts.
Yes, exactly.
She's like, why does he run like that? I don't know.
It's just what they did. I know it's weird. I don't know. It's again, this is not like that is not an actual complaint. It's just something that I can't unsee.
Yeah,
and so he will die.
That got all of us. Everyone who's faced that Rancor just hates the absolute fuck out of it because it's a bad design. It's a bad design for combat for that one character.
And I got so I was sitting there because when you were like, it's a Rancor, man. What did you want him to do? And I'm like, I got so irritated because I was like, you're right. It doesn't make any sense that you can't block a lightsaber even though you use it as the finishing move to clean cut his leg off. And I mean, not like I'm struggling. He's like, this is butter. Goodbye, and cuts his leg off. And I'm like, okay, so I can't block anything? Oh, word. That makes sense. It was so, and it's the one thing that I hate in combat encounters for games, which is when you've created a combat system that is, especially with the two-handed style, is very much focused on fast, like get in, beat the shit out of them, parry as soon as they go to move, don't even let them get a move in. I'm interrupting every single time that you get a chance to speak, and I'm beating the shit out of you. And then when you slow the combat down to where it's like, okay, I have to sit and wait for openings and then do this and do that.
The 12-foot monster that's coming at you, where you cannot let you touch you because it'll one-hit kill you by biting your head off. And it's the worst. Mm-hmm. It drove me nuts. I fucking hated it. But I can promise you, you will not have to deal with that for the rest of the game.
Fantastic. That's great news.
Just once.
But it's the same problem that we had like with Doom Eternal, right? Where it's like the enemies. It's like, because at first everyone's like, "Oh, you just couldn't beat it." It's like, no, I can do it. It's that it becomes unfun. You're slowing down to a crawl. What before should be me going fucking ballistic and shit. But so there's that. I do think there's a little bit of like I just have to let things go in certain situations where there was like I'm going through that hub town. You go like. When you're heading towards the forest, there's like a little barn that you go through, and it's during the stables with the lady that you meet
exactly
who's
like,
yeah. Now in the right corner, there's a chest, and it's not immediately apparent about how you get to it or anything like that. But there's just like a couple planks of wood that are sitting there, and Cal is just looking at you like, I guess I can't get through. I don't know. And I'm like, you have a lightsaber. Like, I'm like, just cut and be like, okay, thank you, and then be done. Why in God's name is he like, I can't do this. I don't know what's happening.
So you can't unsheath your lightsaber now.
Even then, even better example, I can use the Force just to move that shit out of my way and be like, cool, thank you. But he's like, no, I don't know. I'm like, okay. Now, and to be clear, I couldn't figure it out immediately, and I was like, fuck this. And I just walked by. I was like, I don't care.
If you need to, you can come back there later on. There's a way to do it.
Yeah.
You just got to get
and I assume
power or a different thing that happens that you can find.
Anytime that I run into something that I can't immediately figure out, I'm like, there has to be a different power somewhere. The only other thing that I'll say is the part that I ended on, I figured out where to go at the very end, but some of these sections are a little too open for my taste, and I wish they would be like a little bit more linear.
So that second section
it's
now,
it's not everywhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only place that has that super wide open area. Most of the places that you visit outside of that are pretty much just linear.
Okay.
Like you do got left, you can choose like left and right. You might be able to go backtrack and do some other things, but for most of those other places you go to later on, like those will have linear paths. You can't. There's not gonna be open fields and shit where you can choose 5 different spots. No, this is that. I think this is their test bed for what they might want to do either with a different Star Wars game or the next Star Wars game game they do is like let's see how we can do an open world setting for a Jedi game.
Yeah, because like my problem was like you get through the main gate of the forest array and then you like run through and there's like the weird rhino thing that you can fight and like all that shit, right? And all that was fine. Then you climb up the ledge, you get up, and then you have 2 different options. You can go basically to the left or the right. It's only left and you head up, and then there's a split, and it's right or left. There's one that's like across the bridge, and I found out later that across the bridge is that one of the Jedi temples that you can go check out. That's the High Republic lady's voice is all over it and whatever. But then you go all the way to the left, and you keep going up, which is where it seems like it wants you to go because there's enemies and you keep fighting them and blah, blah, blah. There's like a section that leads you in and you, like, there's like a meditation point and then you go up and there's like a gripping point that shoots you forward. And then you go to press a button and it's like, the lift won't activate from here. And you're like, okay. So then you run back down and I was like, well, maybe I got to go across that bridge. I go across the bridge and it's a Jedi temple, but then it spits you back out at the entrance when you're done with it. And I'm like, I don't know where the fuck this thing wants me to go. So like, I went back up and kept trying. I was like, I must have been missing something here. There must be some answer to the puzzle. I ended up, and I saved a clip of it so I can send it to you, Preston. I ended up, of course I did, but I broke the game. I got one of the enemies after I killed it to just levitate in the air, just float.
That hub area, you will break the shit out of that area. It's not hard to do.
So I'm sitting there, and I kept trying to figure out where to go. So finally I had to look it up, and it was like, oh, no, it wants you to like jump off a ledge completely and like land on a spot, but it's not immediately apparent that you needed to go down there in the first place. So I'm like, why? Like, just if you're gonna lead me to where I need to go. Like, let me.
There's a place.
There wasn't though.
There's a place in that game. It's a little like Jawa Town, that got me tripped up for 45 minutes. Trying to figure out like where does it want me to go, and eventually it's just like same sort of thing, like, oh, just jump over this little wall and like ride your little animal like forward. Just like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but it's just that it's mostly just that world though. Just know that like the rest of it is pretty good about circling you back around. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, but so far it's been very good. I've dug it a bunch. Clearly my choice to play it on console was the way to go. Because performance mode on the console has been rock solid. The PC version even today is still fucking busted. It doesn't play right. So.
Our friend at AOL account.
Oh really?
He messaged me. He's like, "Should I play Spider-Man or Jedi?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, play Jedi." He's like, "Okay, cool. I got an EA account." He's like, "I'll get it for free." I'm like, "Cool." So he goes to play it, and like I hear him like on the other Discord, just like talking like it's almost unplayable for him. Or I think in fact at a certain point it was unplayable for him. It's just. And bad.
He has a 4080.
Yeah, it's bad for him. So yeah, PC is still fairly broken.
For a long time, the better cards were worse.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. Like that, but it seems to be like that hub world like just breaks everything.
The hub world does
why.
something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, but I've basically decided that Star Wars will probably be the last 2023 game that I get to this year before the end. I'm not going to make it to Spider-Man or Mario. It's just not going to happen. Sure. And so I was like, well, that'll be the game that I'm playing out there. I was like, but when I'm, like either the PC or the Steam Deck or whatever, I'm gonna need something on Steam, something a little smaller. So I delved into the backlog a little bit, and I played Into the Breach.
Hey, I don't know why, but I always thought you played this one, but I think it was that other mech game you played last year. That's what I was thinking of you playing.
Yeah. So no, I completely missed Into the Breach. Not missed. I knew of it, right?
Sure,
I just never got around to it. But boy, is that an absolute
It's a great game.
banger of a video game. It is. As far as a tactics game is concerned, and especially with mechs and stuff, it's perfect. I would not change a single thing. It is very warranted of all the perfect scores it got. I feel the exact same way. For those who don't know, the premise of the game is that you are called you're these mech pilots called Rift Walkers, and basically there's like this alien life form that has been invading Earth, and you keep going to different timelines to beat the infestation and kill it and save the planet and keep going, and you're just it's just that loop, right? You're just constantly doing it, right? So it's like a roguelike mixed with a tactics game, and you will always, the thing that you bring forward with you each run is a pilot and their special ability. So like, for instance, like a pilot might be like, this makes every mech that it pilots fly, so it can only get hit by air moves or whatever, things like that, right? It's about as short or as long as you want it to be. It took me probably like 5 hours to get like my first clear, and then after that they can start coming a little bit quicker. But there's a lot of modifiers. It has easy, normal, hard, and then it has like 6 different modifiers that they've added since then about like certain sub-objectives to complete during missions and extra stuff like that. And they have all these different classes that you can choose for your mechs that you can unlock after you beat a run, and you get like the currency to spend it. There's not much more I can say about the game that hasn't already been said. But I'm so glad that I went back to it. It's one of those games that it's just going to be immediately, always, forever installed on my Steam Deck, because runs can happen so fast that you're just like, oh, if I only have like an hour, so I'll just pick it up and do a couple runs of it, and see how far I can get, and a couple things like that. Absolutely fantastic. And then the next game that I played was, I was in the mood after I finished that. I was like, well, I want something on my Steam Deck. I was like, but I'm feeling like a JRPG kind of thing. So, and I realized in my backlog, because Preston hooked me up last year around this time, as a matter of fact, Bravely Default 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am about 2-ish hours into that. And that is very good. The thing that I was so it's made by the same people who did Octopath, and then they made this one, and then obviously their most recent game is Octopath Traveler 2. Bravely Default is basically Square trying to make a Final Fantasy game, an old school one, like, pre-10, basically, and saying, like, how can we do this without using the Final Fantasy name so that it doesn't, like, tarnish the new image that they have for Final Fantasy? That is what Bravely Default is. They have Phoenix Downs in the game. Like, it does, like, the whole, like, it uses all the same white mate. The job system is in it. Like, it's everything that you would assume is a Final Fantasy thing, except it's just not. And then the difference is, for the combat, they do a mix of it's called the Brave system, but it's a mix of what they ended up doing in Octopath Traveler, but then like some weird additions. So you basically get like turn points that happen, like like action points that you can spend to do your turn. And what the Brave system, there's also the default option, but the Brave system is, I'm spending points up to 4 or up to 3, I guess technically, to do multiple attacks in a row. So like if I wanted to attack 4 times, I would, spend all 3. It counts the 0. So, but you would spend them all to then attack 4 times in a row. Now, the only way that I would get up to that positive total is if I use what's called the default, which is when you press default, it's basically just pressing defense. So you aren't attacking at all, and you're stockpiling points up to get to that max total. However, the reason they say the Brave system is because you start each match or each fight at 0. So you can borrow against your own turns and go into the negative up to 3. And that's if you're feeling particularly ballsy and you're like, well, if I think I can kill this thing, I can borrow against it now to do all the damage that I would need to do. But if I do that, you cannot act on a negative point thing. So like if I borrow all the way to -3, my character has to sit there for 3 turns and not do shit, like up until it hits 0. So it's like this little like risk reward thing. It's very, very fun. The story is cool so far. It has to do with crystals. Surprise, that's another Final Fantasy thing. Shit. I'm telling you, like they are not shy about it. Now, in fairness, they are the ones who created it, right? So it's like, whatever, you get to bite off your own stuff. But I absolutely, like, the combat is super, super fun. I absolutely love it so far. I'm very, very into it. The only other game that I've played, and outside of the game that we played for this, we talked about this at the beginning. I hid this. I did not talk about this at all to you guys. I tried out, so I picked up on sale. I tried out Sonic Frontiers.
Yes, you did.
Now I know for a fact Jake ears perked up right when I said that because he's a massive Sonic fan. So I played the video that I took for you guys just before we started this podcast because I think it's fair to say that seeing is believing. Like if I would have described what was happening, you got, like Alex, you even agreed, like you would not have believed it at all.
No.
So the boss fight is one thing that I'll get to, but really mechanically, the thing that is craziest about this game is it is absolutely an open world Sonic. Like they drop you in a massive open world. You have little. I hate they call them missions, but they're not missions. They're like an activity, a singular objective activity that you do that will then start piecing together like random parts of the map, and it's like splotches. It's like little drops here and there, and then you just do them, and they sort of fill in these little like grids basically around the map. But it does it in a way that's a lot like very specifically Breath of the Wild. So not like Tears of the Kingdom, but very specifically, you can tell that they sort of ripped a bunch of stuff from Breath of the Wild for this Sonic game, which is like, so what a weird thing to say anyway.
Yeah.
But so then you're playing the game. It's like open, and then like, so in the trailers, people might have seen that there's like, as you go through the open world, there's just like, oh, here's a rail, or here's like a random bouncy thing, and you're like, this doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's weird. As you uncover more of the map, more Sonic things populate into the map. So, like, as you unlock more of it, more puzzles, more jumping, more rails, more this, more that, like, all start to, like, fill in the entire world. So it's this really weird thing of like, at first it feels a lot like Breath of the Wild, and a lot of the complaints that I had about Breath of the Wild's first world, which is just like how empty it is, right? But then like as you go, it fills in with more and more things to the point where like then once I'm pressing the speed boost and I'm like trying to get from one edge of the map to the other, I'm like blasting over there and doing it in like sick rail jumps and tricks and all this other stuff to get over there because I had started to fill in more of the map, right? So it's this weird incentive thing.
Is it the story that like leads to that, or does it just like happen?
Yes and no. Like in the beginning, the story is what like it'll show you like, hey, do this so that you can start to understand these mechanics. But there's nothing in the game, and that'll get to my next thing. But there's nothing in the game that tells you after you do it past the tutorial that you have to keep doing it. You just do it to do it. There's certain little milestones that you have to meet for certain story things to happen. Not even in the world, but just things that you gotta collect, that it will tell you like, hey, go get this many of this talisman so that you can talk to whoever. And you're like, okay, I'll go do that. But then as soon as you hit that number, there's nothing that says like, keep going, right? Like you can just stop and continue the story. Which brings me to the next part of the game, which is one of the collectibles that you have to get is keys to unlock the little stasis chambers around the world that hold the chaos emeralds. Obviously, there's chaos emeralds in this game because it's a Sonic game. Now, these portals that you end up going through, these towers you end up going through, they warp you to what would be a typical Sonic stage.
Yeah. 2D and all.
And it's so weird, like when it does it the first, because it's just like, okay, this is what I thought I was getting, but I didn't get this, but now it's okay. So you play through it, and so far, all of the Sonic stages have been good. Like, they don't, because they just sort of plop you into random ones that are in, like, that you go and run up against, they're able to do a lot less of them because there's the open world for you to run around and do things in. And because of that, only the good ones get through, because inevitably in every Sonic game there is always a handful of good stages and then the rest of them are absolute garbage every single time, with the exception of Sonic Mania, which has nothing but good things, but that's very rare.
Perfect Sonic.
Like most Sonic games, there's a whole bunch of stages, like, you know, that you get to and you're like, ugh, God, I don't want to do this one. Like, it sucks. They circumvent that problem by going like, oh, it's not in here. We can just keep it like nice and tight. So far, every zone only has like 7 levels, which is not a lot for, you know, like, it's not, there's usually tons of stages, right? But this one is just you go through, you play it, and there's usually a mix. It's like, sometimes it's, you know, 3 3D levels and then 2 like 2D level, and then 4 2D levels and any sort of number in between, right? But they sort of mix it up. But you'll do those, and those get you the keys to unlock the Chaos Emerald, so that then you can get into the crazy ass bombastic boss fights that I showed you guys in the beginning that we'll get to, that are like basically a whole different part of a different game. But so you have those things, but then also for story reasons that have not been made clear to me yet, there's like a weird cyber like space thing going on where like it's like melding in with the real world kind of dealio. And so all of your friends, by that I mean Sonic, Amy, and Tails, or Knuckles, Amy, and Tails, are trapped in they're trapped on the cyber side of the universe. And so you're trying to help them out, and you have to collect like their little talismans and stuff by either, you know, completing these little random, like those little random objectives that I was talking about, or you just find them by exploring the open world and doing a lot of the different platforming challenges that happen. You collect those, you bring them to them, and then you start the next part of the story. Now, this is where it truly, I do not fucking understand what they were doing here. And again, I'm still not even 100% sure if I think this is a good game or not, but it is easily the most ambitious and interesting Sonic game I have ever played in my life. Or seen, for that matter. But, so, each world so far has consisted of more or less 4 to 5 like key moments with each character that you're trying to free that lead you up into the boss fight, and then you get the boss fight and you go over to the next island where your next friend is trapped at. You know, rinse, repeat. But there's like 15 more on each like little sections that say like, it shows the character, like for instance, like Amy. It'll show like Amy's icon, but it will not be colored in. And that is to signify that is more story if you want it, but you certainly don't have to get it, which is like so strange, because some of it so far that I've just like happened into, I don't go out of my way, but if I like if I'm like running past one, I'll be like, oh, okay, well, I'll go see what it wants, and I'll do it, I'll listen to it, and some of it I would classify as like borderline vital information to understand what's happening. In some cases, the antagonist is also littered out throughout there, and you can talk to them. And very much, again, it's like, these are conversations that I think should be happening as part of the main game, but I guess this is just, we don't care. Okay. And it's like, fuck off. You can do it if you want to, but if not, it doesn't matter. And you're like, okay, this seems weird to even, I think you should just include it or not include it, I guess, but whatever. I'm not, do what you want, I suppose. And what ends up happening is like these weird, the story is like clearly dealing with like, there's like this weird sub-story that's happening of some of the little, everybody who knows, like, the chows are familiar, right? They're the little blue guys that hang out. It's like, oh, collect the chows or the animals or whatever, and these little fun collectibles that you can get. It's like, oh, look, it's Sonic and friends, and we're all hanging out. It's just these little, I saved the life or whatever, right? The collectible creatures in this game are much different and darker in a way that I don't think I was ever expecting, which is, it's these little, like, hollow stone creatures called like Kokokos or something like that, and they are like completely dead faced. I'm talking like black holes for eyes, like, and then just like an open mouth. It's just, and that's it. And there's these little stone things that sort of bounce around, and you're like, okay, that's strange, but that's fine. You collect them, and then as part of the story, you'll see like they used to be like an ancient civilization that's got wiped out by something. And when I mean wiped out, I mean like systematically and brutally eradicated in ways that you see in game. And you're like, this is strange? Like, what? And so there's times where like you'll be going and it is videos of like a war happening in the background and like two people being like, we have to defend this spot, but even if we die, at least we'll die together. I love you. Our whole family, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh my God, okay. And then it's Sonic, like, running in and being like, whoa, wait, hey, what's going on? Like, and you're just like, what is happening in the background of this thing? And, like, it'll be, like, Sonic and his friends are doing Sonic and his friend things amidst like this very real backdrop thing that's it's so strange, but so far I have not been able to stop playing it when I get the chance to play it, because I'm like, I gotta know more. I gotta see how far this goes. Now I don't know if I'll end up, I don't know how long that wonder will stay, right? But the boss fights surely help keep propelling me forward, which is the final part that I'll talk about here, which is, you guys saw this. It is the most anime hyper action fucking thing that has ever been in a Sonic game ever. And Alice, to your point, you named it's dead on with the bane, but it's very like 2002 like metalcore. You brought up like Seos and Amelia. It definitely feels like that as like the soundtrack, like which is so strange. Like, you would not.
It doesn't. It doesn't fit when you're used to like Sonic music, right? Like no lyrics, just music, and.
But then it fits in terms of like what's happening. Like it fits in the way that battle. Like a 13-year-old creating an AMV for a video game fight or an anime fight that they were doing, right? Like it fits in the same way that like Goku versus Frieza with the backdrop of Linkin Park fits, where you're like that's exact. That it's literally like it's like a AMV. It's basically what's happening here. But it is like Preston. We brought this up when I was talking about it. It's like a light version of Azura's Wrath as far as the set piece, like the bombastic set piece that's going on. Like you guys, like the part that I'll describe is like there's like this giant like mechanical dragon thing that you're fighting, right? And you're parrying its moves, by the way, which is like. Again, a sentence I didn't think I would ever say describing a Sonic game. But you're like parrying moves like real time to like fight and do these things. Then as you go to fight it, if you parry it and get it into like a staggered state, you can do like a finisher move. And in this particular case, you grab this giant dragon, which by the way is like 150 times your size, right? Like it's massive. And you're spinning it around and then you whip it into a cliff and like hit and like a bunch of health falls off. It is insane how crazy, like, bombastic these whole set pieces are. Yeah, so either way, I got it. The reason I checked it was, like I said, I got it on like a super steep sale during this thing. So like my curiosity, I had to go check it out.
Sure.
So far, it hasn't disappointed as far as like my curiosity for it at all. Like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna finish it. I don't know how long I'll keep going with it, but it is easily one of the most interesting and ambitious Sonic games that I think I've ever played or seen. And like I said, if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, this sounds like it's kind of like some of it doesn't all work and it's like kind of weird. I'm glad that you think, because exactly what I'm trying to convey. Like it makes sense why there were some people who played this and they were like, fuck this. Like, and then there's other people who were like, I think I'm gonna see how far this goes. I'm gonna see what they do. Like, I will say this. I have never been a fan, outside of like original Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast, I have never been a fan of, and I've never been a fan of 3D Sonic games. Most of them have been okay to good at best, or to okay to fine at best, and at worst they're like a Sonic 06. It is just trash. This is easily the best 3D Sonic that I've ever played. Problems and all. Like, because it's really hard, I think, to nail the speed that you want from a Sonic game. And Sonic Mania obviously knocks it out of the park, kind of like they nail it on what it's supposed to be. When you're in the open world and you finally have a bunch of space and a bunch of lead up time and run up time to pull off the high speed things that you want to do, it works perfectly. There's a lot of things that they would need to clean up to make this like a great game, or like an easy recommend to anybody. But if you have ever played a Sonic and you've been like, I just gotta know, it's definitely not worth it at full price. But if you catch it on a sale and you're just like, I want to know, it's worth it. In that, it has not disappointed in that regard so far. And that, after all that was, I know I fucking had a shit ton of games, but that is it for my week.
There you go.
Yeah, that game is wild. Like, just the little bit that I saw of it, it is not a regular Sonic game. I will probably still want to try it out, but I will be more than happy to watch all the clips that you want to send. So, with that, let's get into part 2 of our game book club on what were the initials you said earlier, Preston?
VGBC.
The VGBC.
Video Game Book Club. VGBC.
Growing up in the Bible Belt, for some reason I just hear
Vacation Bible School?
Vacation Bible School.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. So, but yeah. So this conversation won't be as long. We set up the world the last time. This game is story driven, but as we kind of mentioned, you have to find the story. So like as a whole, each plateau is kind of rinse repeat, right? So I'm going to add some color to the story that's going on, because I did continue to 100% each area, which along comes lore, and I'll fill in some of the gaps. But we don't have to pause as much. Like, what did you feel about this? What do you feel about that? I mean, really the set pieces, right? A couple of the big boss fights, and
We'll talk about boss fights, yeah.
Yeah, 2 boss fights, and then depending, you might have got a third quick scene, depending on where you stopped.
Yeah. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Christian, if you beat the boss and you stood still, you're good. But if you hit the jump, it initiated like an immediate
spot.
cut.
Yes.
Yeah.
It started to happen. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
okay,
did.
I'll just quit
Yeah.
now. I'll just quit now. That's what I did, yeah.
So you did not watch it.
No, I'm like, I'll go back to this.
I did.
Okay. Then we don't have to talk about it. We
You
can talk
can
about it
watch it.
next
You
week.
can
But
explain it.
yes,
That's
there is a little cutscene there. Okay. So, this time we're coming off the last time where we did the introductory area to learn the game, and then we fought the first boss, and it turned into the great elk, right? Like the giant elk in the forest. We moved from the forest plateau to the red steppe, I believe was the first area, where we fought I'm gonna have to look it up again. Sorrow.
Sauro.
George
Sauro.
That's what I've been trying to avoid the whole
I know.
time, Soros. But I think that Soro. And yeah, so we get there. So let me pull up some of this, and as I'm pulling up my notes here around the story and the stuff that I captured, I'll ask, like, did you all do anything beyond what you did last time? Like, did you go out and search for more, or you just did where you needed to go?
And this is probably as good a time as any to do it. I am souring a little bit on this game. Okay. So this is not a knock against, like, it's not like it's a bad game at all. But so I will say this. I did like, if I saw something, I was like, okay, I'll go. So I did get like some of the achievements, like of solving what apparently the game saw as like the big puzzles in those areas. Is like solve the labyrinth puzzle or solve the waterfall puzzle, like whatever it was.
One or two per area
in each area, sure, right.
Yeah.
So I did. If I came across some of those, and I will say I came across them because I was under the assumption that a talisman would be there, and then it wasn't.
Not
and
always.
I was like, all right, well, fuck it, I'm already here, so I guess I'll do it, and I did it.
Yeah.
I know that this game was released everywhere. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of mobile game feeling design methodology happening here that I think is actively messing with me while I'm playing the game. And what I mean by that is, like, there are things that the game does that I think is meant to borderline on tedious to keep you, like, in a space longer than you would otherwise need to be, because they wanted it to be this, like, much bigger thing than it had to be. Like, for instance, like Journey, right? And I'll use Journey as an example because it was, some of the same people that worked on this worked on that, blah, blah, blah. Journey can be finished in about an hour. Like, if you are just doing what you're doing and you just go, the game can be done in an hour. And at most, it is like a 3-hour game if you're like really wall hugging and like scraping to try to look for each little piece of scarf, right? But for the most part, if you just go, the game just goes. It doesn't stop you from going. This game, like, the movement stuff, it feels really good in practice, like when you're just going across the world, right? And there's nothing hindering you. But then, like, the storm thing. Oh my god. If I keep having this fucking storm show up while I'm in buildings, sometimes underground, and it'll just be like, yoink, and rip you right out of it, and then be like, okay, you're in a plane now, and you're like, I wasn't. I was underground. I didn't. What are you talking about, game? And then it'll yank you out. It'll put you in there, and then you're like, okay, I guess this is what I'm fucking doing. And the only benefit that you have to not just sprinting right at the monster and getting kicked out of it immediately is because you will lose all of the level points that you've gained throughout the time. So it'll just knock it all away completely. So, and if you care about, keeping, like, gaining that bar to get as many flaps as you can get for your bird or whatever, it doesn't do that. But that's the only reason. Otherwise, it would be easier to immediately get caught and get kicked out so that the storm goes somewhere else so that you can keep doing what you were doing in the first place, like trying to solve a puzzle. And the storm, like, so this, but this, the other part about the storm thing that pissed me off was that you get to, like, when you save the bird and it dispels the storm, you still have to do the same thing that you would do when you lose the storm, which is I have to pet down the fucking eagle to get all of the goop off of it so that it comes back, and it's like, well, then what was the fucking point? Like, the only thing that I gain from doing this minigame is not having my levels stolen from me, which, like, I guess thanks, but, like, that's kind of just like, it's like, I only punched you halfway in the dick instead of punching you all the way in the dick. And you're just like, okay, I guess. And then, so that yanks you out of the action every single time that it does it. And I was like, there's no reason for it to be doing this. Like, you don't need to. I get it if you would be like, hey, if you get too close, right? Like, if you start getting near its area, then it will start kind of like pulling towards you or whatever. Fair enough. That's my bad for, getting too close to the area, whatever. But it will follow you. Like, it will just chase you throughout the area, but then also that it will warp to random places throughout the whole map.
It will warp, but it will warp in a pattern. So not like it won't go to the same spots. Like, it won't be the same 4 spots, but it'll be the same 3 zones. So if you pop in and you're like, the storm is to my left, right? I'll start going left because I know by the time I get over there, it will jump either where I was or where I'm going. So and then I just look, right? Did it jump to where I was or the next place? And I did the whole 3rd area and never hit a storm once. And I think the one before I hit a storm 1 time and that was it, right? Because I just moved around the counterclockwise away from it.
If I can see it, then I don't have a problem. My problem is when I'm doing something and I'm in a building and there's nothing outside and it's just like yonk and just yanks me out of it and I'm like, okay, so, I guess.
I've noticed that sometimes if you're in the area for too long, the storm will spawn near you and will come after you. Also noticed that I did get to one spot to where I was on these cliffs to kind of figure out how to spin these symbols around to be the same way of the towers around them. And I was taking too long to figure it out. So the storm came, I'm like, fuck this, I'm going inside the building. So I got inside the building, the storm went by, it didn't get me. I'm like, okay.
I'm like Preston, I was in a building a couple times and never had...
Plenty of other buildings after that, I got. But for this one time, I didn't.
Okay.
So I let it go. I'm like, okay, well, let's sit here. Sit here, it goes by. You can kind of tell the game glitches a little bit because it wants to get you. But it couldn't get me. You can see something with the animation on the character or something like that just goes like that. I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to actually go in that cloud, wasn't I? Okay, all right. So I'm going out to go do the rest of this puzzle. Thing spawns right next to you again because it's pissed off it didn't get you and it comes at you again. Like, it does it like furiously. Like, it's not a minute. It's like 5 seconds later it spawns there and keeps coming at you. So I kept going in that building. I'm like, well, sooner or later I'm going to get this puzzle done. It'll be fine, right? It caught me like the 3rd or 4th time I try to go back in that building because it's not giving you a lot of time. I get like one of those symbols in. I have to go back in the building because it's coming after me. And it finally gets me. But I've been there plenty of times where like, okay, well, I saw that one time happen under this rock. It was a rock. It was like a skeleton or something like that. And like I'm covered, right? I'm covered. It should be covered. I should be covered. It should be fine, right? Because I saved some boar and he went off and did his thing. It got me. It kept on getting me. And then I was in one of those big giant towers. I see the thing coming for me. Like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll go in the tower. There's no way it can get me up here, right? It gets you in those towers. You get a little rope swing thing. And it pulls you all the way up. And you get up there and it pulls you, takes you from that tower, drops you down. I finished the whole little mini game, and then it puts you all the way back on top of that tower once you're done.
It sure does.
It does. That's weird. Did you have the talismans to activate the tower?
No, I did not.
Because there's been a couple times in the game where I've had the talismans to activate the tower. Because I'll collect them.
I did that once.
I'll collect them, and I'll either collect all that I need for all 3 towers before I go do them, just in case. Or I'll just collect, like, the last time I literally collect all of them. That way when I fought the boss, I just went like, popped them in the end one.
If I'm nearby a tower and I have 2, I'll drop it just so I don't have to go back.
Well, so sometimes that helps, right? Like, if you have them and you're exploring and a storm pops up in the area, just run over to the tower and just right before it gets you, just, like, pop them in there and the light will dispel it away and just, like, buy the time.
But again, to me, that's you working around a inconvenience that the game has built in that you are like... But I'm not putting words... That's my opinion on it. But then...
Well, I don't think... the only thing I would disagree with is I don't think that has anything to do with a mobile game.
I'm not done yet.
Because this wasn't because this game wasn't a mobile first game.
No. I know, but it was they marketed it as, and especially Apple wanted it to be like, look, it's on arcade and it's all that stuff. But again, and also that developer, like they've been trending, like Sky was a mobile only game for a really long time before it finally came to PC.
It was.
They've been trending this way. So it's less about the game and more about the developer themselves and all this other stuff. But there's that piece. And then there's the, like, they double immediately when you get to the next area and all the areas going forward. They double the amount of talismans that you need for each tower, right? So instead of 1, it's 2 each time going forward, and that's how it goes.
And I think it stays that way the whole time. I don't think it
Right.
goes to 3.
So they just
I think
do
it stays
that.
at 2
That's
the whole
fine.
time.
It didn't bother me.
Now, and I was fine with that, but then the problem that I got was at the end of this second area. So the first area, Alex, you said that total it has like 10 talismans, right? Like, so you go collect 10 of them.
They'll
and then-
have beyond the towers you do. Each of those last podiums, I think, have 9 spots. Is what I've realized.
Right.
Like each one's
So my problem was that when I got to the second area and I was collecting double the amount of talismans that I was getting before to do all the things, then the pillar at the end it still shows 10, and I went, fuck you. I was like, I'm not doing that. And so I immediately just went to the next area and I kept going. But the next part of the design is for the boss design. So, and in this fight, specifically with the one we're talking about, the next fight was a little bit better and it was a little bit different, but it's still even like so the chase sequences to me are the most epitome of you'll play when we say you can play design, and that's like it's for me most mobile games, and that's why I think that there's like when there's mobile games that don't do this, they're very special and good, but there's a tedium and annoyance but it borders on it. Like it doesn't cross the line, but it skirts the line so much to be like, you will play this game when we say you can play it, and you will not play it any other time before then. You are not going to get ahead or do the thing. So like for the chase sequences,
I was saying, let me ask, in the chase sequence, what's the most little eyes you've shot at one time?
2. I think at most, and I don't think that
And then Dom hits the boost, nitro boost, and he goes all the way forward.
yeah.
I've gotten 3 in 1, and I've gotten 3 in 1, and we'll talk about this in a minute because it is also a criticism of mine, but different. But I've gotten 3 in 1 on the last fight we just did, and as soon as I landed, so I jumped, I went pop pop. Landed, ran to the other side, got the third one, and then it started to take off. And because of something I was able to do, I just cut it short and got the fourth one before it even did the rubber banding effect. So I've been able to get all 4 in that chase scene in about 30 seconds, which is completely different than the others.
And I think we can argue that that's not intended. Like you...
No, it is, but we'll get to that in a second.
Well, they wouldn't have included a rubber banding effect if it wasn't intended. But that's my problem is that...
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is that as you're going through it, you will shoot speed boosts that are in front of the boss. Like, they are farther than what you want to target, but because you have not hit their, like, Goldilocks zone of where it says it's okay to do it, they just won't let you do it. Like, so, like, you'll see things where you can get, like, off in the distance and, like, shoot something way far ahead of the boss, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's my problem, is that, like, a lot of the design, I think, borders on those kind of decisions where it's like, we have crafted this very specific experience, and that's not even probably the right way to word it, but we've done that, and you will play it on our terms, and that's it. So, like, we can't have you blasting through these areas too fast, so we have to yoink you into these fucking storms out of the middle of the buildings. And I don't know how you've not... I mean, I'm glad it happened to Preston too, because else I would have thought that I was fucking crazy, because it sounds like it's happened to you a shit ton of times like it happened to me. They fucking yoink you no matter...
It didn't happen to me a shit ton of times. I didn't get hit by the cloud that much, because I was kind of doing what Alex was doing, was just hitting the... I was looking at it, going a different direction. I was avoiding it to the most part, because it will stay still for the most time, as long as you're not staying in one spot.
I would too. I would avoid it, but there's times, like, if I'm in like one of those bigger puzzles that, like, the labyrinth puzzles or whatever, that take not take a long time, but they take longer than usually the 3 seconds that it takes to do something else. Mm-hmm. Like, if it just happened to be in that area, like, I'm underground, I'm doing my thing, I'm lighting brazers, I'm fucking pulling weights, and then all of a sudden it's just like you said, your character will be in the thing, and it'll just be like rip, and just get, like, yanked out, and you're like, okay.
I was in the Great Temple doing one of those larger ones, and that's when I noticed it last night. Actually, like, it was red all around me on the floor, and it just left. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like I thought it might take me, and it just didn't. I was like, oh, cool, okay.
I think some areas have a weird to where it doesn't click with it, but some areas do.
But you can tell it wants to. It like the game, and there's like I haven't had. I hopefully it happens. I'd love to experience the time where I don't get fucking yoinked by it.
But see, the thing is that when it doesn't get you, like I don't know what happened to Alex's part, but when it didn't give me that one time, it continuously like said, okay, well, I'm gonna disappear right now and come back like a second later, just because I'm like, I'm gonna get you sooner or later. You're gonna come out of this little fucking hole, and I'm gonna get you.
But there's these little. It's all these little things that like like I said, borderline on like tedium and annoyance for me, where I'm just like, this doesn't need to. You don't need to do this. Like you can do anything else, and it would be like I would much rather a shorter, tighter experience than have all these things that artificially elongate what's happening. And again, like I said, because the core of what's happening is still good. Like I said, if you are just free to your own devices, especially after you already clean up an area, like after you beat the boss and everything comes back, if you just like are running around the area and doing your thing, especially after the second zone when you get the super points where it like shoves you way forward, way faster, it feels fantastic. Like you are just like
you're booking it,
blitzing through it. You're just booking it and going and going and going and going. But then that also brings up where it's like, if I shoot like the super powered one and it flings me super far forward, but then because of the rubber banding effect, like if I'm running after something, and it's like you can watch the game push it forward to not keep up with me, because it's like no, you can't, you're too close. Like the same thing happened to me, not this one, but the giraffe looking one, the third one, where the storm was getting close to the last tower that I was kicking off, and I put the talismans through, it explodes, right? So I just jump off, and I do the same thing that I did from the first one, which is the game is like creaking because it is trying to figure out a way to fuck me before I can land, where like I'm gliding in and I'm over this motherfucker, and I'm like, dude, I'm so high and I'm right directly over you that if you would if I got right to the targeting range, I could be like bink, 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 and get all four of your stuff before you even had a chance to react. But it was like, as soon as I got near where the range would be, like I'm not even, the game was just like pushes him so far forward, and I'm like, nothing has ever moved this fast ever in this video game. But because I was getting close and the game could be like, no, you can't do that, it just shoves it forward, and it's like, okay, I guess. And then you go through the whole running sequence of doing the two, and then it runs forward, and you do the other two, and yeah.
So just to check in, how many jumps do you have? How many flaps do you have?
Well,
4 or 5.
I had 5.
No, I know. No, just you have 5. Sure. Now you have 4. Okay.
Yeah, and
Preston,
now I
what are you
have
at?
4.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's 4, maybe 5. I only got the extra ones after I defeated the bosses, but
Yeah,
which we haven't.
Same.
played
I had
too much
not-
about yet.
I had 9.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. So this is my complaint is this in playing it again, which is like my experience is very different than your experiences because I've 100% of the area and I have all of the extra skills that come along with it, right? So like,
Oh, trust me.
my stuff recharges, my glide is like twice as fast now. I had 9 of those jumps, so like for me, I could hit in that last chase scene. The reason it's so easy for me is because I could hit a couple of those like power boosts, and you guys know too, like you get a bigger boost if you do half of it versus all the way around.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a perfect in the middle.
Yeah, the perfect middle. Yeah,
I found
so
that out
I
this
could hit a
playthrough.
couple of. Yeah,
Like, oh shit.
I could hit a couple of those, and I would take off, but like they always try and slow you down because you have to jump over the water and stuff. Well, that's fine. Like I would just pop one of those super boosts, and I got Nimue when we come to the water. I just jumped, and my eagle just took off. So I'm floating, and I dropped and went pop, pop, hit the ground, shot another one super boost, went right under it, hit the other one, and then as she was coming around the corner, I just cut her off and got the fourth one. But a lot of that is because I have those extra skills, and that's actually my complaint. Like, I actually don't care collecting the extra talismans to finish off the area, because I know you're telling me to go to these places and do the lore, right? And I like the extra skills. That doesn't bother me. The part that bothers me is how you padded those areas with the, Christian, to your point, the ones that you think should have a talisman and don't, right?
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't have 25 areas to check per zone to get the 15 talismans. You should have 10 areas per each zone. Those are the only 10 talismans you need. They work for the towers and they work for the pillar at the end, and that's it, right? And like,
Yep.
you could even do that, like add 2 extra towers, make 5 towers, each one needing 1, and then you have 5 extra. But like, the game fundamentally changes when you get the extra skills to 100% it, so you need to make that less tedium and get players to do it, because like you guys said, you don't even know what happens, right? Like, not only are you missing the skills, you're actually missing a little bit of a story and a little bit of lore, because when you collect all of those, then all the spirit animals come up and like you chase them down, you pray to it, like, and there's just so much more that happens that I don't like the fact it's hidden by all of these zones. Actually turn people off from exploring your world and change the game.
To your point, the thing that you bring is, so this is the last thing that I forgot about, but one thing that I wanted to bring up. When you do a lot of the puzzles that give you the like experience, right? So even the big ones, like the big diamond ones that, you know, shoot out a bunch of them.
There's only 1 or 2, but yeah, the big diamond.
Every single one of those puzzles, whether it's the little lantern one or the big diamond one, they always give you just a little bit less than you feel like they should. Like,
yeah. That's actually a good point. I was thinking the same. I didn't know how to articulate that, but I was like, I went to the big one. I was like, oh, cool. This should put me blah blah blah, and it like didn't.
It feels
and
like
oh.
And this is what I sort of mean by like mobile game design, which is like, because that's a huge thing, is that they design things in such a way that is borderline just annoying or tedious or not good or whatever. It's just this enough that when it offers you the ability to pay a couple dollars to get it to go away, you go, yeah, I'll do that, right? Like, sure, that sounds good. Now, again, I'm not. This is more about this developer and not specifically the Pathless. But some of those design decisions are things that I see in like where they were first trying this out before their later games that happened after this, right? Like, so like, but that's my point. Like, I could totally foresee a version of this game in which it was like, by the way, you know, be a subscriber to get the extra 15% experience boost so that you get a full level each time you do one of the big ones, or a half level each time you do one of the smaller ones, as opposed to whatever. Like, because every single time you finish one of those, the pop off happens, and it's everything that you want in an unlocking moment, or like an achieve moment, right? Like when you do something, you finish the puzzle, your reward moment, I should say, like. It like, especially the big golden diamond ones, like they explode and it all goes into like these little tiny ones that all turn in this little circle, and they all very uniformly go right into you, and you're like, oh cool, I have all this power now. And you watch the bar go up, and you expect it, because of how big it is, you would expect, especially how fast it moves up to you want it to go the full length of the bar, but it doesn't. It just goes like woo, and then it's like and then it stops right there, and you're like, oh come on. And it's the same with like the little ones. Like the little ones happen, and you're like, oh, that should be like a little bit, like a nice little chunk, and then it just goes like, meh, and you're like, okay, whatever. Like, I guess it's better than nothing, but.
And on top, I agree. It's funny you say that, because it's something I had felt, but not actually like noted or articulated. But there were a couple times last night when I do stuff, be like, I just feel like, oh, this will cap it. And I'll get another one, and it just didn't. You're like, oh, I just have like now a sliver. Okay. The only other thing I'll say too, when it. I wish we did something different than the flaps, just for anybody listening. I think we described this last time, but you have the eagle, so each time you level up, it gives you 1 extra flap with the eagle, so you can, essentially it's like a double jump or a triple jump or a quad jump. You just go higher. Yeah. So like I said, I had 9. So for you guys running away from the storm, I have enough that I can flap, not to the top of the tower where you put the talisman in. I can flap to the top of that. Like, I can get above the world. So, and then I'm so fast. So, like, me exploring now is super quick for the most part. But the other thing they don't do a good I'm getting lost here because there's two things I want to say when it comes to this experience. We should do something different. I'll get it in a second. But there's things that you guys probably don't even know because the game doesn't tell you that you would only learn by accident. So you've probably seen, like, if you're wearing the mask, there's little light spots on the ground. You jump on them, and it'll put another light spot somewhere else, and you have to, like, jump shoot, right? There's also gold ones that will appear in that, like, spirit world that will give you experience. You've probably seen those. You also get experience from praying at the shrines, if you found those, right? Then there's a fourth one that are ground puzzles that look like walking paths that will just be in random shapes. Sometimes you'll see a small, like super small. It might be like 10 stones in a spiral. I had one the other day that was like it was like a random like square or something. If you just, I was running around. I don't even think I found this like the first time I played this game. I was running around. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go, whatever. And as I was thinking about where to go next, I ran around the spiral, but never stepping off of the grass, only staying on the stone. And a freaking, like, lantern pops out of it. It goes, bing! Do you want some, like, gold things? I was like, oh, so now I also know that, like, if I see these random things on the ground, like, I'm going to get more that way. And none of that really bothers me, except that, like, I wish it did more than the flap. Like, if you're gonna give me skills, don't hide them behind all the stuff to do. Maybe you let me use that stuff as a currency to buy skills. Maybe I can go to one of the shrines, pray, and like turn them into another skill or something. Like, I just don't find the reward for those. I don't think the flap to be a worthy reward for doing all of the work to get those. You know what I mean?
It's nice to have, but like, I don't. Do you really need your 9 fucking flaps? Like, I got 4, and I'm pretty much getting where I need to. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some spots where, like, I would love to have a couple of extra flaps here, but I'll just stop at this plateau and recharge and go up. But, like,
it lets him. What he's saying is that it lets him go over the fucking storm. So the storm will come at him, and he's like, bop, 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 and then it just passes under him, and he's like, okay, fuck you, and then keeps doing what he wants to do.
I can skip a zone if I want to. Like, I don't have to worry about waiting for the
little pillar thing
air thing
up,
at the end. I can just run to the wall barrier and go pop, 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 pop. And did you guys get to the? We'll get to this in a second. But did you get to the shrine, the ruin on the top of the mountain, like on the icy top of the mountain?
No,
I saw it.
So you can get up
in
there.
like the next area or in this one?
No. In this one, in the first one. So in the red step. In the red step, you're surrounded by mountains, and if you look up on one at the end of the map, there's like a temple way up. So like there's a jumping puzzle essentially you do to get up there where you have to shoot and jump. Blah, blah, blah. I can just flap up it, just like in one. So I do use it a lot, and it also makes it way easier because there's so many red areas to like say, hey, go here and look. The only way to see them is from a high point. I just flap up and go, oh, that's where I need to go, and take off, right? So I use them all the time. But that's my problem. Like, you create the tedium makes people not want to explore because you created too many shrines, and then things that you think would have talismans aren't talismans. They're the experience and the reward for the experience, and the flaps doesn't justify the work, right? So you're actually like, players are missing out on more of lore and more of the story, which I think is a shame. They should have cut it down 10 per area.
Yeah.
Period. Right? Period. So, since I have explored, I've been making notes of some of the story because, like, we actually start to get a lot of story for what's going on. Especially because, Christian, I mean, you watched that whole cutscene. Like, you kind of get it, but you're just like, if you watch that cutscene with no context, you're just like, okay. Like, I know why you're here.
Exactly what happened.
But you're just like, okay. Right?
I was like, I understand your motivation, so right on. Like,
but you're just like, oh, I don't like. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess I shouldn't even say
right.
that. I understand what his current stated motivation is. I don't understand what drove him to do it in the first place.
How you got there, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I have that for everyone tonight. So we did the 2 areas, and we fought Sorrow, and Sorrow is the god of fire, and you learn that as you're going around. A lot of these dead people, like their spirits, talk about how like Sorrow brought fire to the kilns of the land, and Sorrow was very giving. with his knowledge and wealth, and he's what allowed them to create bricks and build houses. He's what allowed them to like fire up the kilns to create pottery. He took these nomads and turned them into a civilization on this island, right? He's also the god of war, which I mean, I think that's just like what happens with us as humans.
Fire,
we just assume like fire, war, whatever,
Destruction. Yeah.
I guess it works. So essentially, the story is this. The owl mother created everything. She hatched 5 eggs. The 5 eggs are the tall ones that we fight. Now, along with those tall ones, in order to keep them benevolent, they created people to go along with it. Now, each people were on these different plateaus and end up worshiping a particular tall one because each of the tall ones were given one of those plateaus as their domains. Now, they're not always in this like tall one form. So it was really Nimue, the serpent, which you guys probably didn't even see, right?
Yeah,
because
I saw it.
Well, so you don't see her in her like actual spirit form, though, right? Like her spirit form is different than what they look like.
The cobra?
Oh yeah, I guess she is. Yeah. I just remember her being a Hydra in the fight that we have.
Yeah, and then when you kill her, she
to that.
it turns
You're
into
right,
a cobra.
you're
Then she
right,
slithers
right,
off.
right,
Now,
yeah.
now you saw something completely different because you put all
Sure.
the talismans in at the end. But yeah,
But you saw okay,
You
but
do
yeah,
get
yeah.
a glimpse
So
of them. They give you the arrow. Yeah.
so essentially what happened is like she was the one that was like, I refuse to just like partake in this world of humans. I just want to be the snake. And the owl mother's like, nope, can't do it. If you're gonna like rule these humans, if you're gonna like guide these humans, you need to be in human form. So if you actually look around when we're doing a lot of this, minus the puzzles where they have to turn to the 4 different things, you will see the tall ones depicted as actual people. So like you can find them in places where they're actually like paintings of people. So
Also-
what happened? Yeah, go ahead, Preston.
Eagle mother.
Thank you. I said owl.
No, you're good.
Thank
I was
you.
waiting for you to correct yourself. And you correct yourself. I'm like, I should probably say something. It's gonna drive me
No,
nuts.
thank you for that. It's fine. So what happened was all of these people got a little like clicky because their plateau, all of the gods were like had different things. So the first elk, they're the ones that created the forest and created some of the like special wisteria branches in the game. And then of course, like I said, our god of fire here, and then the cobra is like the god of water and the winds. And then the next one we're gonna meet is I'll just spoil it. It's a bear, and he was the youngest but the biggest.
Yeah.
And he liked to wrestle the other tall ones before they were tall ones. But because he was so strong, the eagle mother, she actually made them grow larger than typical animals. So she actually turned them into the giant size they are. And the giant size that we fight is not the giant size that they are. The giant size you see, their skeleton, after you turn in all 10, is how big they are. And dude, they're effing massive. Like the snake starts along the plane, goes up the entire mountain, and then like curves off of the map. Like they're just absolutely huge. So one of the guys started preaching to everybody else of like, we want to find out like why the tall ones started, why the tall ones are like in charge of everything. And he said, the only way that we can ever ascend to the knowledge that the tall ones have is if we find the one path. And they're like, we can't have this like descent. We can't have these people trying to search for like the all-knowing omnipotence that we have. So let's put him in jail. So they put him in jail, but his word still starts to spread. And he starts to get followers. And this is why in the area of Saros, if you saw a bunch of like dead bodies everywhere, that plane is where the battle starts to break out and starts to change. So that's where he was. That's where his followers were. That's where the prison puzzle is. And what happens is they break him out of prison, kill everybody there, and essentially turn into fanatics. and they start going across the plains saying either like, you're going to follow us as we follow this guy to find the one path, or we're going to kill you.
The Pathfinder.
The last stand, yeah, he's the Pathfinder. The last stand of this is that monastery up on the top of the mountain if you go up there. And those monks were like the last line of defense that get killed. So what they end up doing is when they make it to Nimwe's area, that's where the temple is, he actually finds the original spirit mask. So we're wearing a version of that spirit mask, but that's why his has 3 eyes and ours only has 1, right? And when he got the spirit mask, he actually saw the world for what it was, which is born of chaos, and he realized that the gods aren't that smart. The gods just got lucky in the way they created this, and there is no one true path. So Christian, this is where his motivation starts to turn, and he starts to kind of like lose his mind. He gets really mad, and he's like, we've kind of been lied to. We can't ascend to their level of knowledge. They're just as lucky as we are, and there's not one true path. So if I want there to be one true path, I need to burn the world down and recreate
so that I can make it.
And that's why it's called the Pathless, right? Like, we as humans, or them as humans, they're pathless. We thought there's one path, there's not. Like, we're just pathless.
Which he says that, I think he says something like that in his little speech.
Yeah. And what happens is there's something else. There's another. I'll go ahead and spoil it because you guys probably won't see it. It's he gets that first. He gets the mask first. The next thing he wants is a sword of light. That's in the next area we're going to. He gets that sword of light. That's the sword he's kicked our ass with a couple of times. And once he has those 2 things, he says, I'm no longer the one looking for the one true path. I'm no longer the pathless. I'm a god slayer. Because in order to burn the world down, I have to kill the gods. And that's why we call him God Slayer in the thing. That is the story, and that is his motivation. That's why everything has happened, and that's where the core of all of this starts. You have one person that wants to be the most godlike, finds out that it's all chaos, and completely turns his back because he realizes it's all just luck anyway, and makes people fanatic. Which actually is kind of a decent story, and it sucks that they like hide it with all the other tedium.
I've gotten like little bits and pieces here and there. Like one of the places I went to in one of the areas was the place where he finds the mask. So you see all these dead bodies. The guy's like, yeah, like we're his followers, and he just had us straight up walking through and activating all his booby traps so he can go in and get the shit.
Yeah.
Like he sacrificed yourself so I can go in without getting hurt. So he
didn't want to do all the puzzles we have to do, so he just he just says go set them all off, and they were willing to give their lives to do it. Yeah, it's the monastery up top's dope because like there's a ton of dead monks, there's a ton of dead people like all the way outside of the monastery, all up and down the hill, and essentially what some of those things say are like they came to the gates and they were yelling like join us, join the one true path, and they're like no. Like, we are the last line of defense to the last 2 gods and the Eagle Mother. And they said no. And they said when we said no, they essentially turned into banshees and monsters. And they didn't just, like, walk up the mountain. They straight up were, like, claws climbing up the mountain, climbing up the side of the walls. Like, they didn't even try and break down the doors. They just went over and overran everybody and just tore them to shreds. Which, is, like, super dope, right?
This makes some of the stuff... This makes some of the stuff that I found make a little bit more sense. But there was one puzzle that I finished where there was like a little, like the little blue lore orbs that we talked about, and it was this one that's like clearly had like this dude has like a sword through his chest, and there's another dude who's just like laying dead next to him, and there are 2 separate lore orbs.
My brother, like my best friend or whatever,
stabbed me and blah blah blah, and I whatever, and then he says I killed my. I killed my brother or whatever because of X, Y, Z reasons, blah, 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 all this different stuff, right? And then you go look at the person who has the sword through them, and they're like, the person that I thought my brother killed me, but when I turned to look at them, it was just dead eyes. The person that I knew wasn't there anymore or something like that. I remember reading that, and I was like, okay. And then I thought to myself, I was like, I'm sure this is something cool, but I have no idea what the fuck this means right now. I think
you're in the infirmary, because I think I remember that section too.
Sure, yeah. And it's like... This is another thing that sort of lends me to like where I was leaning with this is like, and that's not to discount the coolness of everything that you just read because it is very cool, but that's sort of my point is like there's a lot of cool lore things for like what was it, like that big like Ragnarok Online or whatever the fuck that giant mobile MMO thing is or whatever, right? Like it's one of those things where when somebody explains the lore of what's happening in that game, the story, like everything that they say is happening is fucking radical and sounds so cool, but then what you get is not. Now that's a little bit different here, but again, that's my point, is that it's close but not, like it's teetering on that line, whereas like this at least has a way for you to find it. It's just very obfuscated and makes it very tedious to go and look for it all, as opposed to like a true mobile game, which would be like, you know, they say this is what's happening, and if you go to their website, that's what it says, but when you actually are playing it, it's nothing like that, right? But
again, like if you had just 10 points of interest, and each one of these were like the infirmary, the monastery, right, and you got these like small little lore dumps, it just it adds more to it.
I would say make that
like,
all mandatory, and then have it be like you could do like a flashback to like show like this is the piece, because all of that sounds cool as fuck and all that stuff. And I still haven't even decided if I'm not gonna go back and like get the other talismans. If I'm going to do it, it'll be right before we go to the final area so that I can explore those areas unimpeded without getting fucking yanked out of it in the middle of it. But like that's if I go back to like that's when I would go do it, because like you describing the serpent one specifically, like seeing the cart, like the spine or whatever, like all the ribbons like going up the mountainside and all that shit, that sounds fucking cool. That like that, but then again, it just lends me to be frustrated of like this should have just been what you showed. Like if you had done this, if you had done what you're talking about from the beginning, and made, like I said, like what you were saying, Alex, a more linear thing where it's a set points of interest and all this stuff is popping off, and then you're getting flashbacks to that story, and you're seeing people like transform and run up a mountain like crazy people and do all this other stuff. You could have made that a full $60 game and I'd have paid for it. Like 110%, absolutely. Yeah. Like remove all of the bloat and make it so that it's just pedal down to the metal action. Action as in storytelling, not action as in game. But you know what I mean, right? Like it would have been.
Even if you couldn't see it, like I'm even fine with that. But if you're not going to show me, if you're going to do like maybe I use Spirit Mask and instead of just reading a blue orb, like somebody actually pops out of one of those bodies and explains
and tells me, sure,
right? Like even if you do that, that's fine too. But the key to those things is less is more. Don't make me do it 55 times. Maybe do it 10 times, right? And that's it. Like. So that's my problem. I would say don't go back and do it. Like you're not going to have any benefit when you go into the final battle. If anything, just like look it up online or something. You know what I mean? Like just watch it versus do it yourself. But yeah, so that's what's going on. So really then what stands out in each of these things, which we'll quickly talk about, are the two different boss fights we have, because the game is the game, right? So the first boss fight with Soro, he is a lizard. Though
he's a Komodo dragon, right?
Yeah. Though he's a little different in his like corrupted form. That I liked that boss fight. I want to make sure I'm not getting these backwards. That was the one where we have to run from point to point. He's shooting fire in, yeah.
No, so we got the long neck as the first one. The second boss essentially, and he's the one who's like tossing like fireballs at you, and he'll do like the full blood stomp towards you. The next one we face is the one that you actually hide behind the walls while you're shooting fire, because the Hydra one.
The Hydra was the fire one. Okay.
They all do fire.
No. But like when you
there's
go
one
into
you're like running through the hallway,
the arena, the hallway. That's the
hallway.
That's the Hydra.
That's the Hydra. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the Hydra fight is very cool.
It's very cool.
Okay.
This one's more simplistic.
So then this one.
Yeah.
Remind me of this one. This one's more simple, where we're in the circular arena, yeah, on this one?
Yeah, this one is just like the normal fight. Like it's just he like is shooting it's sort of like a redo of the first fight where like he like runs at you a little bit and then you just run around and shoot like his legs or whatever, and that's basically it, more or less.
Okay. I did this one like last week, and then did the rest of the game like yesterday, so I don't remember that.
The third boss is much more substantially different and exciting.
Okay, then let's talk about that one because then this one is more of a redo of the first one. Right?
The only one I say about the second boss was that since it was, but like it was that, like Preston, you nailed it. It's exactly what I thought of, a giant long neck dinosaur, and I was like, what the fuck are you gonna turn into at the end of this? And then it's like, I'm a lizard, and I'm like, not even close.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. I'm like, oh, like that's different than
his size is way smaller too. Like in the spirit form, when you see him, it's much smaller than that huge thing that you chase and you fight.
Yeah, but like when I was chasing that thing, my brain did not think lizard. Like,
yeah, the first one kind of looks like an elkish thing, but like dysmorphed, and then this one is like tall neck thing, and all of a sudden like you defeat it, and it's like, okay, let me go back to my form, and it comes back into like a giant lizard thing. Like I was expecting you to have a longer neck. I was expecting like a giraffe or something like that.
I thought a giraffe 100%.
To like to like show the shape, the silhouette I expected to be there. Put it that way. I expect the silhouette to be the same.
I mean, a hydra is not. I guess it's a little snake-like in the head, but it's also not a big long.
Oh no,
serpent.
that was also a very weird transition as well.
When a cobra jumped out of it, I was like, oh, but by that point, I had already decided in my brain, okay, there's a chance that it could be whatever the fuck it wants to be, so it wasn't as shocking. The one thing that I want to say about this Hydra fight, really quick.
Wait, the Hydra or this?
The Hydra fight, because you said we're moving on to the Hydra fight.
Yeah.
You guys are very, and I agree. The back half of this fight, I think, is much cooler than everything that came before it. I fucking hated the beginning of this fight, where you have to shoot the fucking. It's 4 heads, and then it turns into 8 heads, and all this other stuff. The thing that pissed me off about it the most was that it's like, oh, by the way, if you get hit, we'll just grow another one back, and I'm like, oh, just eat a dick, like.
So it's super easy, but the game. They do something they haven't done all game. So all game, you know that you hit the speed boosts doing one of two things. You do a half shot, which is a perfect shot, or you do a full shot, which is a standard shot. This one is not a full shot at all. It's a tap of the trigger. Right? If you do a full,
you can do that with anything as long as you're close enough. So even if those normal things in the field, if you're close enough, you just tap it, you'll still hit it. So it's a distance thing.
Yeah. Right, but like for so long you're like trying to get the power or the like spot on shot.
Don't hold on.
And it will take too long. Yeah, it will take too long in this fight, and you get hit every time. It hit me once. I go, oh, that's right. And from then on, as you see it, you go pop, pop, pop,
like
pop.
Flashing at you.
That wasn't the part that got. So the part was for me is that when it's flat, it was the beam one. It was like the one that's like a straight shot when it doesn't do a thing. That was the one that hit me like 3 or 4 times, and the reason that it got me was because it wouldn't let me target it. Like. It would be charging up, and I would try to run forward or run backward to be in whatever spot it wanted me to be in to hit it, and it just the diamond wouldn't show up across it for me to be like to start the shot. So then the character would just start shooting arrows just flat at the ground, and I'm like, okay, thank you so much. And then I would get hit, and then it would be like, and I'm growing under their head again. And I'm like, oh, just eat a dick. Like I was so frustrated. And
I'll tell you what part got me on that fight. Because I got to a rhythm on that one. I started standing still. I started throwing fireballs in the air, so I ran left. They all landed. They started coming. I ran right. I stood there. Then you have the swipe, so I just jump and shoot.
And
then
shoot,
the laser right. Like that was easy. The part that got me was earlier in the hallway. When you're running down the hallway, the very first one, I kept making it one step from the door, and the fire would hit me and shoot me halfway back and it'd stun and be like, oh god, okay. And like, but before you recover, it hits you again and pushes you all the way back to the beginning. I probably did that 7 times. I was like, come on,
and I think you're right. I think the second boss, I think this boss does have some of those hallway like fire scenes. I think that's like, I think you are correct. I think that does have some of those.
Yeah, okay.
Because you go into the tower because it has the long neck, so you go up the tower as you go through. While the third one,
you know what? You're right. It is that
the third one is more like a volcanic kind of area, but yes, the second one does have a tower.
So let's go back
with the bullshit to where it has the eyeball on the other end that you can't shoot, even though it's a perfectly fine distance, but you have to walk really close to it to fucking hit. I'm like, put a wall in front of it, man. Put a wall in front of it.
So that one, so the second fight, I actually like a lot because that's once you do the chase, you run into that area where essentially it's a 3-story building built into the mountain, right? It's like some sort of monastery, what have you. So you start off in the bottom. And you're having to run from one end to the other. You go to the next floor, you have to run back, and so on. And each platform, you're hitting a brazier, which like shoots out some light and damages it. That's what that one is. I thought that was the second one.
Yeah,
okay.
You're right. Yeah. It's
so the first It took me a minute to get through the first hallway because, like I said, I would run. I would wait till the flame on the floor is gone, and I would take off running. I would get hit every time. What I realized is you have to go while the flame is still there at the end,
Just
and you were
dissipated.
fine.
Yeah.
Second and third, like, and then the straight hallway when you're running straight at it, that was totally fine. I just had to get through that first part, and then it was fine. But the thing I appreciated about that fight, it was different than the first one. I liked the arena, and I just thought, like, mechanically, it does suck getting thrown all the way to the back when you get hit, but there's not a lot of, like, repercussion for actually getting hit. And I just thought it was clever, like a clever change from the first one. If you would have done it every time, it'd be a pain in the ass. But the first one I actually liked. So I don't know if you guys had any trouble with that fight at all. I found that one pretty easy.
That was pretty good. Like I said, there's some parts I thought was kind of shit. But like the very last part to where like there's that brazier at the very end and you're trying to get to it and like every time I'm right fucking there, it doesn't get like push back. And not to push you back just like the one like wall before that, it pushes you all the way back to the beginning of that section. I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That was fucking funny.
Yeah, no, that was fine. I mean, there was some shit, but
there's some parts that were shit. The second one I liked more than the Hydra. Because at least the set piece was different and it was cooler. I found it very like there was parts that you're like, I can hit this.
Yeah, I have a bow and arrow. It's
but
right there.
That's my fucking story for the whole goddamn game. But the third one, the Hydra one, that's the one that pissed me off. I'm just sitting there getting rocked by this fucking laser beam that it will not. It'd be different if I saw it. Like, I would totally agree. 'Cause, like, if it was like a timing thing, right, where it's just like,
it shows
hey,
you
just
block,
press
you
it.
didn't hit in time. Yeah.
And I didn't hit it in time. But if I saw the block and it didn't let me hit it in time, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll just let it go sooner or whatever. Like, I would have learned that lesson. But there's no dime. Like, it wouldn't let me shoot it. And so, like, what I had to start doing was when it would get the laser one, I would literally have to jump at it in the air to get it to let me target it so that I could shoot it. And I was just so irritated by the end of it that I was just like, when I killed it, I was like, God, fuck you. And then the fucking little snake comes out, and I was like, even if I had the talismans, I wouldn't put him in there. I don't like you. Like, I was like so irritated.
So that third section, you got like the three phases, right? You got the one where you're doing like what Chris was talking about. You're trying to hit the heads off.
It's the four heads,
The four heads, and then you got the second one to where they got the bird. You gotta take the bunch of heads down. You pop the little two bubbles, and the bird lets go, and then like you're kind of floating around him to hit that second hit. Third hit, you're going through, and it's the fire thing that we're kind of got confused with, where it's like, yes, okay, it's like a little lava pit section to where like there's some lava walls. He can't get hit.
Like
you gotta,
circular.
Yeah, it's like you're going around it.
Yeah.
So I get through all that kind of like frustration stuff like you went through for the first phase, and then you get to the second phase, third phase. Getting towards the end of the third phase, game gives me a fatal error. I texted you guys last night when it happened.
Yeah.
I am at the very end of this fucking
did.
section of the game. It's like 9:30 at night. I'm like, I'm getting close. We're gonna beat it. And just fatal errors and force crashes on me. I'm like, cool. Luckily,
Where did it save? Because I know it.
Very beginning of the boss battle, but very beginning. So like, it literally, like I hit continue, and it's like boss is there. Go ahead, hit the heads. I speed run that entire first 2-3 phases. I did that so fucking fast, man. Oh my god.
The phrase you're looking for is speed ran.
Speed ran. Thank you.
Speeded runs.
Spoded runs.
Speeded ran.
Spoderan.
That's
Spoderman. What?
that is the one benefit with me as well. Like
Good
I
checkpoints.
have 100%. So I have all of the skills, and I've played this game before. So I can speedrun most of these things because I've experienced it. And once you know it once, like it's just it's very simple.
Yeah.
Just like all the puzzles.
Redo that boss battle.
I assume now, even though it's a pain in the butt to get to each one of those different puzzles, by this point in the game, you guys have done so many that you look at it and you go, "Oh, yep, know what to do here." Pop. Moving on.
I see the mirrors. I see the foot spots. I'm like, okay, bring the weighted thing on there.
Second.
Move the mirror here. That's fine. We got.
Although I had one because I just like peeked my head into the fucking next area. I'm not gonna say anything about it, but I had a puzzle that was grabbing a bunch of different whole things and then having them fall at different rates so that they can line up right so you can shoot 5 through. That one took me about solid 10 times, and I was getting real close to turning the game off, and I was like...
Did you do the one same thing, but it's flat where they're like doing this in different speed.
Yes. Now that
one took me 3 times.
That one's fine because they're flat and you're just following the one that you let go and it goes across. This one it's 5. They're lined up. 3 of them are lined up and 2 of them are not. And you have to run to it, and it's a slant. It's like this, like it's like graded, right? So you have to get up to the top and pull that one all the way up, and then let it go. Run to the second one that's down a little bit further. Grab it, but you can't let it get all the way up because if you let it get all the way up, it won't fall fast enough to meet the other one. So you have to cut it off at like 3/4 the way so that they fall at the right time, and then you can shoot and hit all 5 of them.
I did none of those.
I'm telling you. Yeah, this was in the area that you haven't been to yet. It was just the first one that I saw in the area when I poked my head in.
Is it for a talisman or is it for the experience boost?
It is for a talisman, and that's the only reason I kept doing it. Because if I would have seen like the thing there, I'd have been like, "Oh, I'm not doing this," and I'd have just sailed my way off and then been like, "Fuck you," and I'd do something else. It was because it was a talisman that I was like, give me the fucking talisman, and yeah, I was. Well, real ready to.
Before we wrap it up, there was one it
so funny.
Does that final like pillar of air, right? So I did the pillar of air, but I kind of just stood. I just stayed and floated at the very top and kind of looked around. Did you guys peek at all of that? Like, did you guys see? Like, 'cause you can see the pathway of where we're going next, which should be obvious, but.
I mean, we both went into that area.
So if you look at it, you see like I guess the cat or whatever, like the 2 animals are kind of there on the mountainside. If you look to the right. Off to the mountainside, you start seeing a little trail of like floaty rocks that go all the way up to the middle section up there. I'm like, oh shit, you can see the whole kind of breadth of where you're gonna have to go. And I thought that was really cool.
There's a little detour that you have to take before you get, but yes, yeah. There's like a whole zone before we get to the floaty rocks.
Okay.
So yeah. So the whole zone is going to be the 4th area, where the spirit animal is the bear. I don't know what his corrupted form looks like. I forget.
I thought it looked like a dog, so I didn't think it looked like a bear at all. But you know, whatever.
Well, but it may have looked like a dog, right? Probably knows a frost wolf, and then it turns into a bear. Who knows?
Sure. Who knows?
Yeah.
So to my recollection, for anybody out there, for you guys, the 4th area is a normal area, just like we've done. You're gonna have 3 towers. You're gonna have 2 talismans per, I believe, and so on. The last area, if I'm not mistaken, is just the boss fight. Like I think there might be some running to like give you some anticipation, and I know there's a little bit of a running puzzle to like get to him, but as far as I believe, and I'll double check, there are no towers or anything up in that area. It is just boss zone.
Okay.
So we should be good there. This should be like the last area where we're actually
finish
doing
it up
stuff.
next time.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll talk about the cutscene next time, since Preston, you'll actually get to see it. Again, it's some of the lore we talked about, right? But now it'll actually have context for you, which I think is important.
Nice,
and then any other lore that I come across in the area, I'll share that as well, because I did cut it off.
And then I think outside of this game, so this will be the last video game book club for this year.
I think it's gonna be the last video game book club of the year, because we'll have D&D up soon, and we have at least two
Game Awards.
at least 2 episodes of Game Awards. Yeah.
Which
so the Game Awards,
I think works
and
out.
then Game of the Year.
Oh, so I forgot that we're covering actual Game Awards.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still got the testes coming up.
We do have the testes.
So December will be all about awards for the most part, awards and some D&D. But then after that, I will have a fun game for all of us to play on my birth month. January 6th is only known for one thing. I will not hear anything otherwise.
Preston's birthday. I will never forget your birthday.
No, apparently everyone else won't forget my birthday either. So. God damn it.
Yeah. Nor should they. Hashtag never forget.
Hashtag never forget.
It's bad.
You forgetting something? Anyway, so thank you for hanging out with us, everybody. Again, I'll share any lore so you guys don't have to worry about it next time, but we are almost at the end of the Pathless. It'll be interesting to talk about, and I know we shared some of our grievances, and they're not going to get better, right, because the next area is the same, but I want to know like your thoughts on the story as a whole versus like the rest too when we get there.
Sure.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for hanging out with us, everybody, on this latest episode of Vacation Bible Club with Preston, Alex, and Christian. So, anyway, we will be back at you next week. With that, Preston, you know what to do.
Hit it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Testing Room. To catch up on past episodes or check out the newest ones when they drop, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If watching is more your thing, check out youtube.com/thetestingroom or Twitch TV/testingroompod. To leave comments and ask questions, follow us on Instagram @testingroompod and email us at testingroompod@gmail.com. See you next time.